Chapter 541. In the large conference room on the first floor of the Longhu Club, the invited media set up their cameras and focused on the three people on stage. Empress Luo, Dragon King Chen Qitao, and Lu Cheng had all changed into navy blue uniforms. They were elegant, dignified, and full of energy, displaying the different styles of martial artists. Lu Cheng, why did you choose to join the Longhu Club and not stay in the Wiyue Club? Everyone knows that you are from the Ice God sect. A reporter got permission and stood up to ask. Lu Cheng was prepared for this. He smiled calmly and said, Longhu has always been my home team since I started watching professional matches. Also, I have to thank my old master. He told me not to be constrained by sectarian views. The Longhu Club is open, tolerant, and beyond the individual level. I thought about this answer for a few days and revised it several times. Coach Yen also reviewed and modified it. Cough cough. In front of the TV screen, Geezer sure cursed while holding a bottle of wine. Is this brat trying to push all the blame onto me? If it were in ancient times, this kind of disciple would be hung up in public. Only I, your master, have a tough body and strong strength, so I can take it. If you don't understand the unique skills of the restriction sect in the future, I will teach you a lesson. The reporter was very satisfied with his answer. He wanted to take this opportunity to start a conversation about whether the sect's organizational structure was not in line with modern society. However, the host was quick and didn't give him a chance to mess things up. He picked the next person to ask. Dragon King, there was a rumor saying that you personally called to invite Lu Cheng. Is that true? Asked a short-haired female reporter with a China satellite TV tag on her chest. Chen Qitao's expression didn't change. It's true. Then what made you do this? As far as I know, you have never looked at anyone so favorably before, asked the short-haired female reporter excitedly. Because he has enough potential and his Emperor Yen force is not bad, said Chen Qitao calmly. Then, he raised his hand and gestured for a similar question to be typed. However, none of the reporters who like to play the devil's advocate raised an opinion. At this moment, in the Longhu Club forum, a plumber eating mushrooms wrote, pounding the ground laughing expression, the Dragon King is a good senior, but he's definitely not a good opponent. When Lu Cheng has enough potential, the Dragon King will cherish him. But when Lu Cheng turns his potential into reality and catches up with the Dragon King, I bet that the Dragon King will try his best to suppress him and not let him make a comeback. You're slandering my Dragon King again. Pig Riding Knight said with disdain. How can you call it black? I'm a die-hard supporter of the Dragon King. Everyone knows his character very well. I just made a deduction based on the actual situation. A plumber eating mushrooms replied comically, to worship someone, you have to worship even their flaws. I'm such a narrow-minded person. Okamoto's fan immediately mocked, you're just a fan who's naturally black in the depths of his heart. Bah, if Lu Cheng advances by leaps and bounds in the future and threatens Dragon King's position in the club, how will you feel? A plumber eating mushrooms asked, spreading out his hands. I'll be a little unhappy. After all, my original name is the Dragon King. However, the Dragon King definitely won't be surpassed. Even if he falls behind for a moment, he can still catch up. All these years, hasn't he been performing such miracles for us? Back then, the warrior sage was so abnormal that almost all the mighty ones were in despair. But the Dragon King didn't. Unparalleled Dragon King answered, living up to his nickname. Wonton Seller said while looking at her fingers, I'll be very conflicted. Their discussion on this matter didn't last long. The press conference came to an end. Lu Cheng completed a group photo with Empress Luo and the Dragon King, officially joining the Longhu Club. In just a few minutes, the headlines on Weibo were published, Lu Cheng chooses Huadu. The Dragon King has a successor. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The martial arts sections of all the major portals uploaded similar content. The battle between the heavenly sons of the era has been decided. Joining the Longhu Club. A new starting point. A win-win decision. Breaking the prejudice of sections. Modern martial artist Lu Cheng. In the forum, after seeing the group photo, above the sky, a girl who loved rock and roll said, "Friends on the tree can come down now. There's no need to watch anymore. Lu Cheng has indeed joined the club. Everyone slide down in an orderly manner. Don't cause trampling damage." Ha 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 ha, I'm so happy, so happy. My idol has joined my favorite force, said Brahman, who was in her 3rd year of middle school. Let's add a friendly link to Lu Cheng's fan forum. We're all family from now on. Brahman, have you been infected with silly nightfall stupidity? Why are you laughing like that? Joked unparalleled Dragon King. What? You don't know? That silly child just rolled off the bed laughing. Luckily, we're at home and not at school. Brahman puffed up her chest and raised her head, indicating that she wasn't on the same level as a certain someone. While the two forums were cheering, Lu Cheng finished his interview with a few media outlets. He watched as the Dragon King left majestically and followed Ning Zidong to the restaurant. What's the volcano laboratory? He asked curiously. Guojia, the martial arts fanatic, and Chen Qitao, the Dragon King, both mentioned this term. In ancient times, after reaching the physical invulnerability stage of the fire sect, one would choose to train in an environment similar to the depths of a volcano. However, it was full of danger. Even a physical invulnerability mighty one wouldn't be able to withstand an accident. Ning Zitong briefly explained, the volcano laboratory uses the power of modern technology to imitate the conditions in the depths of a volcano. Although the actual effect isn't as exaggerated, the intensity can be adjusted automatically. It's a godly weapon that aids training. Once you're close to the physical invulnerability stage, you can use it. As for the Ice Sect Environmental Laboratory, we don't have one in our club, but the military does. Lu Cheng was excited. He felt like he had come into contact with a different world. As they spoke, Ning Zidong led him into the restaurant. It was already past lunchtime, but there were various steamers on display for the convenience of the mighty one. You'll be eating here in the future. Try it. Huaqing's breakfast snacks are pretty good. Ning Zidong smiled and pointed ahead. Lu Cheng looked around and saw a notice posted on the wall. Breakfast was from 7 to 9, lunch was from 12 to 2, and dinner was from 5:30 to 7:30. If there were leftovers, they would be kept warm. This allowed the mighty one, who was a glutton, to eat more and less until the club closed at 8. After busying himself for a while, Lu Cheng, who hadn't had breakfast yet, placed 3 stacks of steamers on the table. First, he took a picture of Yan Zhika. Opening the steamer, he picked up a crab roe bun and swallowed it in a few bites. Satisfied, he exclaimed, "Not bad." It wasn't any worse than the ones in Huaqing restaurant. After stuffing himself with food for a while and filling up half his stomach, Lu Cheng deliberated and asked, "Sister Ning, what's the club's usual schedule like? Are there holidays?" "Holidays?" Ning Zidong sneered. Her eyebrows relaxed like a blooming flower, revealing a hint of maturity. "We're all adults. We're all mighty ones known as monsters. Who doesn't have a personality? Why are there so many rules? The club's daily schedule is very flexible. As long as you don't miss the scheduled matches, you can come and go as you please. It's all up to you. However, there are all kinds of facilities here. There are specialized trainers, so it's definitely better than training on your own. Also, the reserve team will have a session with a physical invulnerability mighty one every week. It's from 3 to 5 in the afternoon on Monday. Unless it's something important, I suggest you try your best to attend. If you need to take time off, tell the assistant team in advance. You don't want to waste food and the chef's efforts. Who knows that every grain on the plate is hard work? Phew, that's fine. I'll plan which matches I'm going to participate in. When I'm free, I should be able to make a trip to America every month and stay there for 4 to 5 days. When I'm busy, it might even take up to 2 to 3 months. But I can make use of the time to stay at home for a few days. Lu Cheng's mind raced as he made plans. Before he knew it, he had swept away all the dishes on the table, such as abalone juice and chicken feet, white sugar cakes, and shumai. There was no need to tidy up. Ning Zitong brought him to the training area of the reserve team. It was in the northwest area of the first floor. You'll get to know them today. The main thing is to practice the fire sex dance stage chapter. Try to get a basic grasp of it within a month. Ning Zitong said casually as they walked. The club has other secret arts, such as the dark sex flickering light and passing shadow. I'm the best at that. Also, there's a martial art that combines the incomplete golden bell shield and immortal flesh. Long Zhen is pretty good at it. Once you've mastered the fire sex dance stage chapter, you can come into contact with similar things and broaden your horizons. All right. Lu Qing nodded happily. I feel like there's a lot to learn. How exciting. This is one of the joys of practicing martial arts. After walking for a few minutes, Ning Zitong stopped in front of a huge door. She took more than 10 seconds to put on an elegant and faint smile. Then, she pushed her hand forward and walked in elegantly. She said to the martial artists around the area, "Everyone, come over here for a moment." Yu Wangyuan and the rest retracted their stance and greeted respectfully, Empress Luo. They gathered in front of the beautiful, dignified Ning Zitong. Lu Qing noticed that Lu Xiaofei, Yu Wangyuan, and the rest were clearly slower by half a step. They stood behind a martial artist in a clustered manner. And this martial artist was someone he recognized. Tu Zheng. Tu Zheng, who was close to physical invulnerability. His forehead was full, and his square face looked like it was carved by a knife. He was masculine and fierce. His eyes were neither big nor small. His pupils were dark and fiery. Ning Zitong smiled faintly and said to Tu Zheng and Lu Qing, "I won't introduce the two of you. You should know each other, right?" "Yes." Tu Zheng laughed heartily. He looked at Lu Qing and said, "I heard that you were coming, but I only confirmed it today. I was supposed to have a welcoming feast tonight to welcome you back. However, I didn't know when you were coming and was arranged to do something else. How about tomorrow night? Let's get together tomorrow night and get to know each other better. What do you think?" "Sure," Lu Qing replied with a smile. He wasn't an introvert, but he wasn't arrogant either. He knew how to get along well with the people around him so that he wouldn't be troubled by trivial matters. Chapter 542. As a physical invulnerability expert, Ning Zitong didn't stay for long. After a brief introduction, she left the northwest area of the first floor. Lu Qing roughly recognized the few members of the reserve team. Excluding Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, who lived in the Sky Capital Garden, and the team leader, Tu Zheng, who occasionally represented the Longhu Club in top-level professional competitions, the remaining two were a man and a woman. The man's surname was Sun, and his name was Jianlin. He had a medium build and was strong and stocky. There was nothing special about his features, and he had a typical face. However, as an inhuman mighty one, he had a hidden glow in his eyes. His manly charm was born from extreme confidence, and he wasn't much inferior to the average handsome guy. The woman's name was Jia Lu. Her eyes were bright and watery, but they didn't contain any gentleness. She was used to standing at the side and looking at everyone like a bystander. It was as though she didn't care about anything, as though everything she saw and heard was nothing more than a reality TV show. According to Empress Luo's introduction, the 5 of them were all below 30. The oldest was Tu Zheng, who was 28 years old and had high hopes of achieving physical invulnerability. The youngest was Jia Lu, who was 24 years old. She had broken through to the Inhuman stage before the Chinese New Year, and was transferred from the Dan stage group to the reserve team. The rest were Yu Wangyuan and Sun Jianlin, who were 27 years old and had obtained their 4th pin certificates 2 years ago. Lu Xiaofei was 25 years old and had just passed the ranking event in April. Each of them had the potential to fight for the top 2 spots in the major sects of the Wuyue Club. However, the Longhu Club had 5 of them. Apart from that, there were a few who were at the same level as them. They were following other teams that they had close ties with to fight in the second or third level professional competitions. Every February or March, the core team would reconsider who would go out to train, who would stay to break through to the physical invulnerability stage or strengthen their foundation, and who would be assigned tasks to eliminate unfamiliarity when they were transferred to management or the army. The number of Inhumans below 30 clearly showed the strength of the Longhu Club. They were definitely worthy of being at the top. Lu Qing exchanged a few pleasantries with them. Then, under Tu Zheng's guidance, he confirmed his personal resting room and entered the dance stage training room. He freely pondered over the visualization diagrams of the fire sect, detailed explanations of moves, and notes. Every member of the reserve team had their own personal resting room in the northeast area of the first floor. It was a small room of about 70 square meters. From 9:30 to 11 a.m., Lu Qing didn't do any training. Instead, he roughly skimmed through the fire sect's Dan chapters. He had a general understanding of the fire sect. They didn't require no training, but there were many repeaters, and even more unsuitable ones. And they didn't need not practice. Practice, but there were many repeaters and even more there were many unsuitable. Yes. They had no need, ts. Practice. Practice. After this round of sorting, Lu Qing confirmed that there were only 23 dance stage unique skills left to practice. Some of them were the application techniques of force. Lifting his head from the pile of old papers, he picked up his phone. Glancing at the time, he walked out of the training room and returned to his personal resting room. He sat on the sofa and video chatted with Ku. In his plan, the time between 11 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. was reserved for foreign lovers. Unless there was something extremely important, they would do it regardless of rain or shine. It was summertime in Connecticut, America. It was between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. Yenjika had the most free time of the day. It was the sweet time before bed. However, there were always exceptions. Due to the delay of a member of her team, she was still a little short of submitting her report tomorrow. She estimated that it would take another 2 hours. She didn't mention it. Instead, she excitedly video chatted with Lu Qing. They talked about his first experience in the Longhu Club and the few mighty ones with physical invulnerability. Yeah, no matter how big the world is, communicating with Qing is the most important thing. At most, I'll stay up late. I'm Heroine Yen who has mastered the wholeness formula. As for the report, I'll tell Qing when the video is about to end. That way, he won't keep worrying and nagging. At the reserve team's practice field in the Northwest District, there were various facilities. Leader 2, Lu Qing left the training room at 11 a.m. and returned to his personal resting room. Yuan, who had a round face, came back from his stroll outside. He lowered his voice and said to Tu Zheng, "It's only been slightly more than an hour." Although he said that he controlled his voice, it was just for show. He didn't use secret voice transmission, nor did he control his voice to be as soft as a mosquito's. Lu Xiaofei, Sun Jianlin, and Jia Lu were paying attention. When they heard that, they slowed down their movements and listened quietly. Tu Zheng's lips curled. He laughed and said, "He's the heavenly son of China. Maybe an hour of practice is equivalent to a day's worth of practice for us. He has his talent and we have our hard work. There's no need to be envious. Alright, let's continue with our practice. If there's anything you can't figure out, let's discuss it together. Oh right, I have something to do in the afternoon. You guys can arrange it yourselves." His expression relaxed and his moves became more natural. At 12:30 p.m., Lu Qing heard that his little fairy had to stay up late to report. He was angry, amused, touched, and heartbroken at the same time. However, he didn't harp on this matter. According to the experience that little Ming had imparted to him, he had to make the girl feel like she was putting in effort from time to time. Otherwise, things wouldn't last long. After giving a few reminders, Lu Qing came to the dining room. Seeing that there was a new Qing province cuisine district here, he took a basin, no, a bigger bowl, and filled it with 20 kgs of steamed beef vermicelli, stir-fried shredded pork with ginger, and other dishes. Lastly, he filled a big bowl of bitter bamboo shoots with meat slices soup. The taste of bitter bamboo shoots wasn't Lu Cheng's favorite, but the soup it made was refreshing and delicious, appetizing and relieving the heat. The meat slices were tender and delicious. Dipping it in the water, it was delicious and went well with rice. Other than that, he also went to the Guangnan cuisine district to get a roast goose. It had sweet skin and fragrant meat. It was fat but not greasy. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Cheng took a bowl of mung bean sugar water and drank it leisurely to get rid of the taste of meat and vegetables in his mouth. He suddenly thought of something. He took out his phone and sent a message to Fatty Jiang. Do you want to meet tonight? Yeah. Jiang Fei replied quickly. I'm just waiting to rip you off. What time? About 6:30. Let's meet at the school gate. Send me your location. Lu Cheng picked up a slice of watermelon and took a bite. Fatty Jiang should be at the university town, right? After confirming this, Lu Cheng wanted to inform Amen via WeChat so that the kitchen didn't have to prepare his dinner. However, after thinking for a while, he chose to call the office of the assistant team directly. Hello, you are? Asked a man with a strong Guangnan accent. I'm Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng gave his identity succinctly. Hello. Mr. Lu, what can I do for you? The man was very enthusiastic. I have something to do tonight. I won't be eating at the club or returning to Sky Capital Garden. Lu Cheng explained the situation. Okay, I'll inform the logistics team and car team immediately. Mr. Lu, what time will you be leaving? Where are you going? I'll help you arrange the use of the car. The man asked eagerly. Every physical invulnerability expert was assigned a nanny car. The inhuman experts of the reserve team rotated between 3 cars. Those who were free would use them. Those who were not free would have to apologize. However, under normal circumstances, they had sufficient resources. This was because Tu Zheng and the rest had their own cars. It was just that they were too lazy to drive them occasionally. I have to reach the university town at 6:30. Lu Cheng had originally planned to use his phone app to call for a car. However, since there was a benefit, it would be a waste not to use it. Okay, I'll arrange it immediately. The man seized the opportunity and said, take down my phone number. I'll send you a message to confirm it later. My name is Huang Bin. My phone number is. Forget it, you don't have to remember it. I'll send you a message directly. Okay. Lu Cheng didn't reject. The staff of the assistant team had a good service attitude. In the assistant team office, Huang Bin, who had a 370 hairstyle, typed a message excitedly. He wrote his phone number and name. After which, he glanced at the paper address book and sent it to Lu Cheng. Immediately after, he hurriedly arranged the cars and gave the best one to Lu Cheng. To him, this was a great opportunity. The assistant team had the supervisor and deputy supervisor, as well as the personal assistant of a physical invulnerability expert. They all had high salaries, face, and status. This was especially so for the latter. Sometimes, he was equivalent to the spokesperson of a physical invulnerability expert. Wherever he went, he would be surrounded by people. Even officials and bosses had to curry favor with him. As for the reserve team and the Dan stage team, they didn't have a fixed target to follow. Therefore, they couldn't enjoy the treatment of a physical invulnerability expert's follower. They were considered ordinary staff. Their treatment wasn't bad, but that was it. With the property prices in Huacheng, it was wishful thinking to want to settle down and buy a house here. Most people could do similar jobs, but they were highly replaceable. As a result, their salary couldn't be compared to that of a designated assistant of a physical invulnerability expert. In the reserve team, the two most likely to reach the physical invulnerability stage were Tu Zheng and Lu Cheng. The former had a good relationship with Sun Tingting and would look for her every time. The latter was new to the club and was unfamiliar with the place. It went without saying who would be easier to befriend. As long as I can gain Lu Cheng's recognition and become his trusted servant, wouldn't I be able to reach the pinnacle of my life when he makes the leap and appoints me as his assistant? Back then, in order to take on Lu Cheng's mission, everyone was locked in a fierce fight. Amen, the newcomer with the least experience, benefited from it. Now, my chance is back. Lu Cheng didn't try to guess what Huang Bin was thinking. He didn't care at all. He spent the entire afternoon in the training room, studying the diagrams and practicing his techniques. The more he practiced, the more shocked and excited he became. Boom! He was in the training field attached to the training room. He extended his fist and punched the air, causing flames to sweep outwards. The 13th move of the fire sect, Scorch. This may seem like the simplest move, but there are many mysterious techniques to it. The more I practice and practice, the more I feel like I'm still lacking. Lu Cheng compared the way he usually used the move and felt that today was different from yesterday. As expected of a move that had been modified by generations of mighty ones. Even the Dragon King had improved on it. It could really be said to be well practiced. At 5:30 in the afternoon, Lu Cheng pulled himself out of his obsession. He took a shower, rested for a while, put on his backpack, and walked out of the door. According to Huang Bin, there would be a car waiting for him there. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 543. As they approached the entrance of the club, Lu Cheng saw a tanned and skinny young man with a parted hairstyle walking towards them. He spoke with a heavy Guangnan accent. Hello, Mr. Lu. I'm Huang Bin. The car is ready at the entrance. Sorry to trouble you, Lu Cheng thanked him politely. You don't have to be so polite. This is my job, replied Huang Bin with a smile. Huang Bin answered with a big smile. He turned around and led Lu Cheng out of the gate. They boarded a black MPV. Lu Cheng sized it up casually and felt that the interior was soft yellow. It was more luxurious than the one in the morning. There were curtains and partitions between the driver's seat and the driver's seat. Through the walkie-talkie, absolute privacy was guaranteed. There was a cabinet at the bar with famous wines in it. The refrigerator was divided into 2 levels. Half was for cold drinks and the other half was for ice and ice cream. To the university town. Huang Bin picked up the walkie-talkie and said. Although he had already sent the destination to the driver, he couldn't let go of the opportunity to show off. After doing all this, he didn't stay any longer. He got out of the car with a smile so as not to delay the time of the future physical invulnerability. Lu Cheng nodded at him and opened the fridge. He took out a bottle of mineral water, poured himself a glass, and drank. At the entrance of the club, Yu Wangyuan and Lu Xiaofei, who were waiting for the car to return to Sky Capital Garden, witnessed everything. They had mixed feelings. The latter pouted and said, the assistant team is really snobbish. They're practically at the beck and call. If I can achieve physical invulnerability, I definitely won't pick among them. In comparison, Amen is still alright. She's so warm and considerate to everyone. Their snobbery might be what the club wants. Yu Wangyuan's round face was full of self-deprecating smiles. What do you mean? Lu Xiaofei played with her short hair. To create a difference in levels and create the beauty of special privileges. If physical invulnerability, quasi-physical invulnerability, and inhuman are treated the same, how can the difference in status be reflected? How can we be motivated to catch up? Yu Wangyuan replied calmly with a sigh. To the club, getting a few more cars and a few more drivers is just a small matter. But why do we have to do that? If you want others to treat you seriously and fawn on you, then you have to work hard to improve yourself and become the most popular person in their eyes. Lu Xiaofei listened thoughtfully and nodded slightly. That's really the feeling. When I was in the Hedan stage group, I didn't have the opportunity to coordinate the use of the car at all times. Every day, when I missed the shuttle bus, I had to think of other ways. The people in the assistant group only came back once in a few days, and they didn't even show up for no reason. At that time, I was filled with the desire to stand out and enter the reserve group. Seeing that his teammates agreed, Yuan opened his mouth. With our realm and strength, if we aren't in Longhu, we can be the cream of the crop in any province or city. There will be plenty of opportunities, VIP treatment, and various benefits. But this way, we won't have the motivation to push forward. We won't lack anything, and there won't be anyone to compare with. It's very comfortable, and it's inevitable that our willpower will soften. If I had chosen the police when I left the army, I would definitely have a high position in the provincial department. But I still have the ambition to become a true mighty one. The reason why the reserve group model is so popular in the top professional competitions is not only because we can often receive guidance from physical and vulnerability experts, but also because there are so many inhumans together. It's inevitable that there will be comparisons and competition between them. This is very beneficial for training. Lu Xiaofei exhaled and said, "That's true. That's indeed the case. My biggest goal now is," halfway through her sentence, she suddenly laughed. After a few seconds, she said, "To surpass you." "Very good. My goal is to catch up with Leader 2. Yuan laughed softly. Lu Xiaofei took a deep look at him. She felt that this friendly-looking teammate of hers was much more profound than usual. He was born in the army and had a lot of experience. He's not like me, a blank piece of paper, who rose up step by step in Longhu Martial Arts School, Lu Xiaofei muttered to herself and said doubtfully, but with so many high-pin martial artists gathered together for training, it will also create a lot of psychological stress for everyone. If they can't compare to others, they will fall behind in competition. It's fine if it happens twice or thrice, but once it happens too often, the impact will be huge. If it happens repeatedly for a few years, even the strongest willpower will be shaken, right? That's why there are arrangements for us to train in other teams. Firstly, it's to train in actual combat. Secondly, it's to give us confidence. If we really can't do it, then we'll switch to management, the police, or the military. There are inhumans quitting every year. It's not like you haven't seen it. That's how great the pressure of competition is. Yuan looked out of the door and suddenly laughed. All right, our bus is here. When we get home, remember the feeling of being agitated by Lu Cheng. Turn it into motivation and strive not to be caught up by him within a year. Work hard. Lu Xiaofei waved her fist heroically. Beside the door of the silver-gray business van, Amon's face was so dark that it looked like water could drip out of it. She had witnessed the scene of Huang Bin fawning over Lu Cheng from the second-floor office. She felt like she was stabbed in the back. I tried my best to be fair and not compete with the seniors in the office. When a pie fell from the sky and I was sent by the supervisor to welcome Lu Cheng, I was in fear and trepidation. I didn't dare to have wishful thinking and only wanted to gain recognition with my work attitude. Who knew that Huang Bin, a senior employee who was usually all smiles, actually contacted Lu Cheng privately and interfered? He usually acted like he had a good impression of me and was rather ambiguous. But when it comes to benefits, he's actually like this. Treacherous villain. It's really not easy to survive in the workplace. The business van drove smoothly. Although there were occasional traffic jams, they still arrived at the university town at 6:20 p.m. They made a detour to the entrance of Jiang Fei's school. Just stop here. You can go back now. Sorry for the trouble. Lu Cheng glanced out of the window and saw Fatty Jiang. Hence, he picked up the walkie-talkie to communicate with the driver. Mr. Lu, I can wait for a while longer. I'll send you to the dining location before leaving. The driver took the initiative to suggest. That's fine too. I'll ask where I'm going. If it's on campus, I won't trouble you. Lu Cheng watched as the door opened by itself. He lowered his head and got off the van. He took a big stride forward and approached Fatty Jiang, who was wearing a gray t-shirt, light yellow shorts and black sandals. He reached out and patted Fatty Jiang's right shoulder while he dodged to the left. Fatty Jiang was still fooled hundreds of times. He looked to the right in a daze for a few seconds before regaining his senses. He looked to the left and complained, "Why are you, an inhuman mighty one, making fun of an ordinary person like me? Before I started practicing martial arts, I also didn't see you find the right place." Lu Qing laughed. "Where are we going to eat?" Fatty Jiang was getting more and more mellow. "Let's go to an old restaurant. The taste of their white-cut chicken. TSK. Let's not talk about it. I go there every week for a sumptuous meal." Jiang Fei swallowed his saliva. "How far is it?" Lu Cheng was getting hungry from his words. Jiang Fei looked into the distance. "About 10 to 20 minutes by foot. Then we'll take a car there. Send me the address." Lu Cheng patted Fatty Jiang and gestured for him to follow him. After getting into the car, Jiang Fei opened his eyes wide and looked around cautiously. He praised from the bottom of his heart, "Cheng, your treatment is awesome." He gave him a thumbs up. "Aren't all commercial cars like this?" Lu Cheng asked in amusement. He picked up the walkie-talkie and sent the address to the driver. "I know." Jiang Fei smiled embarrassedly. "I mean, there's a special driver." "It's not a special one. It's just that I can use it." Lu Cheng answered honestly. Jiang Fei nodded. When he felt the car start, he subconsciously looked at the street outside the window. He saw his schoolmates coming and going while enduring the heat. He was in the cool air with cold drinks in front of him. After driving for 10 minutes, the commercial car stopped in front of the Lin's restaurant. After seeing the driver leave, the two entered the restaurant and ordered 2 white-cut chicken, 2 roast geese, 2 sets of barbecued pork and 4 plates of rice noodle roll. The waiter was stunned by the order. "Take away if you can't finish it." Fatty Jiang shouted in annoyance. The waiter suddenly understood. After sitting down, Jiang Fei asked about the Longhu Club curiously. Then, he smiled and pointed outside. "This place is close to 3 universities. There are many beautiful girls coming and going. I look at them for a long time every time. Although I don't have a girlfriend, I feel satisfied. It's like I have the whole forest. Your attitude is called, 'Look, my picturesque country.'" Lu Qing teased Fatty Jiang. "What can I do? I'm also desperate." Jiang Fei spread his hands. "Last winter, a few schoolmates came to Shushan to play. After knowing your Lu Qing, they were very enthusiastic about me. They kept trying to introduce girls to me, but they all failed miserably. Then I can't help you. You can't lose weight." Lu Qing took the opportunity to provoke him. "Sigh, I'll just leave it to fate. Maybe one day someone will discover my rich inner qualities." Jiang Fei laughed at himself. They chatted for a while on this topic. When they talked about finding a job, Jiang Fei said with a distressed expression, "I can't be like you and become a tycoon after graduation. Actually, with my major, if I want to work in a factory, I'm not afraid that no one will want me. But after thinking about it, I feel reluctant. In the second half of the year, I'll apply for other resumes. Anyway, if I don't stay in Huacheng, I'll go to Gaofen. I won't consider other places." Well, Gaofen has been developing well in recent years. Lu Qing didn't know about Jiang Fei's major, so he didn't express his opinion casually. "Sometimes, I miss high school. I didn't have to think about anything else. I didn't have to choose. I only had to focus on studying. Once I was free, I could play with my heart. Unlike now." Jiang Fei sighed. "Once you enter society, you'll feel that university is better." Lu Qing answered seriously. "I prefer university to high school. In high school, I felt that my mind was not mature enough. I didn't know how to appreciate life, so I lived without a care in the world. But in university, I gradually formed my views in various aspects. I have myself and am relatively free. I know. You have a goddess to accompany you in university. Jiang Fei picked up a piece of chicken and stuffed it into his mouth. Don't expose me. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Reminiscing about the past and looking forward to the future, the two chatted until the sky was completely dark. Chapter 544. Ding. It was rare for Lu Qing to receive a message. He picked it up and saw that it was a typhoon warning in Huaqing. In the next few days, a disaster would hit Huaqing. It said that it happens a few times a year along the southeast coast. Lu Qing thought about it casually and started to think about where to do his morning training in the storm. Should he come to the club earlier? He used his chopsticks to tear a small hole in the crab roe soup dumpling in front of him, letting the soup slowly overflow and fill the entire plate. He then took a picture and sent it to Yenjika with a sneaky smile emoji. After returning from the university town last night, he chatted with his wife as usual, called his mother, chatted with Talker and the others on QQ, played 7 to 8 rounds of games, and read novels. This morning, he woke up on time and trained hard, focusing on the technique of the Fire Sect's 13th move, Scorch. At 8:15 a.m., he met up with Lu Xiaofei, Yu Wangyuan, and the rest. They took a car to the club and enjoyed all kinds of breakfast in the restaurant. I want to eat. Yenjika replied with a teary face emoji. I just finished my morning training. Who's showing off a big meal? Lu Qing snickered. It was summer break at Connecticut University. His wife's homework was coming to an end along with the submission of the report. Her parents-in-law had flown to America and planned to bring her on a 2-week trip before returning together. At that time, little Fairy would spend a few days with her grandparents before flying over for a family reunion. Because it was too hot to go out, and because he didn't know much about Huaqing, Lu Qing suggested that Yenjika buy a house during the winter break. In summer, shopping, eating at old restaurants, and lazing around at home with the air conditioner was the way to go. Furthermore, Longhu Club's salary was paid monthly. It was 800,000 a month. If it wasn't enough, it would be paid in one lump sum at the end of the year. If he wanted to pay the full amount, he would have to save for a while. Just as Lu Qing buried his head in the soup and stuffed the crust into his mouth and chewed with relish, the girl said, I get hungry quickly. Can't I? Okay. When you come to Huaqing, I'll bring you to the club's restaurant. Family members get a discount. Lu Qing smirked as he typed. Suddenly, he felt someone approaching. He looked up and saw Alman in a round collar white shirt walking over. She smiled and asked, Mr. Lu, what do you think of the dishes from Xing province yesterday? Not bad. The craftsmanship is very authentic. It's not that kind of local improvement. However, there are a few dishes that I don't quite like. I can make some adjustments. For example, the beef and sour soup. Lu Qing honestly expressed his thoughts, not intending to be modest. In the next few years, he might have to eat the dishes cooked by that chef. He couldn't endure it for a while. Alman took out a pen and paper from her handbag and took notes seriously. In the end, she smiled and said, I'll tell the chef directly. She emphasized the word direct to show her sincerity. Lu Qing smiled and nodded. He remembered the question and changed the topic. Isn't there a typhoon coming soon? The Sky Capital Gardens field is half open, so there's no shelter from the rain. Where should I go for my morning exercise? Alman's mind raced as she said, Sky Capital Gardens Activity Center has a small indoor dojo. Mr. Lu, if you're sure, I can help you inform them in advance and get the key. When the time comes, you can go whenever you want. She was most afraid that Lu Qing wouldn't have any requests and she wouldn't be able to perform. Now, she couldn't wait to rush over to the Sky Capital Garden property. Okay, thank you. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief and nodded sincerely. You're welcome. It's what I should do. Alman was overjoyed, her pretty face glowing. She saw Lu Cheng's gaze turn to the stack of steamers. She tactfully said, "I won't disturb your meal. I'll go settle the matter of the dojo." She took small steps back and slowly turned around. She walked towards the door with a smile. Only when she saw Huang Bin's annoyed expression did she restrain her expression. With her head held high, she walked past him in a dignified manner and left gracefully. She finally understood that in the workplace, it wasn't good to always give in and be a good person. You couldn't abandon your kindness to others, but you had to fight for what you had to fight for. Otherwise, not only would others trample on you, but they would also mock you. Huang Bin had been in the assistant group for many years. Although he wanted to immediately go up to Lu Cheng and exchange a few pleasantries and ask if the driver yesterday was satisfactory, his rich experience told him that under the premise that Alman had just disturbed him, he would only trigger the emotion of annoyance if he went up himself. The loss outweighed the gain. He secretly gritted his teeth and silently left the restaurant. Lu Cheng didn't notice the workplace struggles of others at all. He chatted with his little fairy while enjoying his breakfast. He left the restaurant at 9:10 a.m. and entered the dance stage training room to continue comprehending and practicing his unique skills. He returned to his exclusive resting room at 10:50 a.m. and had a video call with Yen Jika. He returned to the restaurant at 12:30 a.m. and bumped into Tu Jing coming out. "Dinner gathering? I've already booked a private room in the club. Is it okay to leave at 6 p.m.? Tu Zheng's chiseled face was gentle and smiling. "Sure." Lu Qing agreed readily since he had nothing to do. After that, he, who had just come into contact with powerful martial arts, was so excited that he didn't take an afternoon nap. He spent the entire afternoon in the training room and the training room. Boom! In the void of his fist, scarlet flames rolled in all directions, hiding a golden color. Lu Qing nodded in satisfaction and kept his stance. He had finally mastered the 13th move of the fire sect, Scorch. Everything is difficult at the beginning. The progress of the remaining 20 over unique skills would be faster than this. Well, excluding the most difficult ones, swoosh. Warm water dripped down and washed away his fatigue. Lu Qing changed his clothes and carried his bag. He went to the reserve team's training room in the northwest to meet up with Wang Yuan and the rest. "I've already informed the assistant team. There's a car to send you guys there. I'll bring Jianlin and Xiaolu." Tu Zheng waved his hand generously. The 6 Inhumans of the reserve team arrived at a luxurious clubhouse without a word along the way. Just as they pushed open the door to the private room, Lu Cheng, Lu Xiaofei, and the rest were stunned because there was already someone sitting inside. It was a bald man who looked like half of an iron tower, a first pin expert with fierce eyebrows, Optimus Prime, Long Zhen. Compared to yesterday's meeting in the meeting room, Long Zhen didn't release his aura, but it made people tremble involuntarily. It was like an animal meeting its natural enemy or a weakling meeting a mafia boss. Long Zhen didn't care about the shock of Jia Lu and the rest. He casually cut off the end of his cigar and turned it over the fire. "Master Long took good care of me when I was in the reserve team. He often gave me pointers and can be considered as half a master to me." Tu Jing explained with a smile. When he heard that I was going to hold a welcome dinner for Lu Qing, he said he wanted to come and join in the fun. There aren't many physical and vulnerability experts like him who don't put on airs. Isn't that so? Among all the physical and vulnerability experts I've seen, those who put on airs are few and far between. Maybe he doesn't want to put on airs in front of me? Lu Qing criticized in his heart. He cupped his fists and greeted him calmly. Lu Xiaofei and the rest came to their senses. Keeping their shock, they followed suit and greeted, "Greetings, Master Long. Have a seat." Long Zhen's mouth broke into a wide arc. He pointed to the cigar box at the side and said to Lu Qing, "Want one?" He didn't show any authority, but there was an irresistible aura about him. Who could reject the goodwill of a first pin expert? "It's okay. I don't smoke." Lu Qing took a light breath and smiled calmly. "What are you afraid of?" "You're no longer at the foundation tempering stage," said Long Zhen as he took a puff of the cigar and slowly exhaled the smoke. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, he chuckled and said, your ice mirror has reached the level of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection, right? As soon as he said that, Lu Xiaofei and the rest were shocked. Physical invulnerability experts wouldn't be interested in such a level. However, for inhumans, it might not be possible. Among all the fourth pins present, other than Tu Zheng, no one else could achieve such a level. He had only been an inhuman for a year, right? As expected of the heavenly son of the era, this person must have specially researched my competition videos and put in a lot of effort. A first pin expert like Long Zhen wouldn't be so bored. Who could it be? Lu Qing looked at Tu Zheng beside him and nodded thoughtfully. Yes. Isn't that settled then? At this level, controlling your body, removing the dirt and cleansing your lungs is a piece of cake. Why would you be afraid of a cigarette? Said Long Zhen with a half-smile. Lu Qing gave a self-deprecating laugh and replied firmly, I really don't like it. Long Zhen didn't say anything else and turned to ask Wang Yuan and the rest. No one rejected him. In an instant, the room was filled with smoke and looked like a fairyland. Lu Qing didn't mind. His lungs were so strong that they could cleanse themselves. Not smoking directly was just a matter of attitude and principle. When the cold dishes were served, Tu Zheng smiled and said, I brought a few good wines. You guys take a look and see what you want to drink. After Lu Xiaofei and the rest made their choices, Lu Qing waved his hand and said awkwardly, I don't drink. Don't drink? Which swordsman in ancient times didn't drink? Sneered Long Zhen. Lu Qing shook his head and said, I'm used to it. There's no need to break it. Besides, compared to alcohol, I prefer other flavors. You're so boring. Long Zhen didn't force him. He chuckled and said, if it were any other job, if you don't drink, would you dare to not drink when the leader stares at you? I'm working hard to practice martial arts so that I can have the right to refuse. Lu Qing imitated what he said back then and smiled calmly. Long Zhen nodded slowly. You're right, the grouper and abalones were served one by one. When the banquet started, Tu Zheng livened up the conversation. Long Zhen also talked about the things that happened in the reserve team from time to time. Both the guests and the host enjoyed themselves. After dinner, Long Zhen didn't stay for long. He said that he was going to other places in the club to relax. Under Tu Zheng's invitation, Lu Qing and the rest went to the KTV on the third floor to sing for a while. After Lu Xiaofei and Jia Lu played for a while and left, Tu Zheng smiled and went out for a few minutes. Not long after he came back, the door opened. More than 10 girls walked in and stood in a row in front of the big screen. Some were young and beautiful, some were charming, and some were fat and thin. They all had their own flavors. The quality is not bad. You guys can choose first. Tu Zheng leaned back in a relaxed manner and rested his arms on the back of the sofa. I don't need it. Lu Qing was the first to answer. What are you afraid of? What's wrong with a man acting outside? Tu Zheng chuckled. Seeing that Wang Yuan and Sun Jianlin had started to choose, Lu Qing took a deep breath and stood up. I have something to do. I'll leave first. You guys have fun. After he finished, he exchanged glances with Tu Zheng. He didn't panic at all and was calm. Go ahead if you have something to do, Tu Zheng said slowly. Lu Qing nodded and left. After he left, Sun Jianlin drank with his female companion as if nothing had happened. He smiled and said, Leader 2, you're too anxious. We don't know each other well enough. He's still a kid who just left school. That's true. However, I can see that Lu Qing is a person with a strong will. He's a martial artist who is used to restraining himself. Wang Yuan sighed and hugged his 2 female companions. Tu Zheng had a beautiful girl sitting beside him. His eyes were half closed and he didn't say a word. July 3rd, Friday afternoon. Lu Qing was having his meal when Wang Yuan leaned over and smiled. The reserve team has a weekly sparring session in the afternoon. Do you want to join? Lu Qing, who had mastered another unique skill of the fire sect, was itching to join. Sure. Chapter 545. 2:30 p.m., first floor of the reserve team's training ground in the northwest area. Tu Jing smiled and said to Lu Qing, "Everyone has been training hard every day and neglecting actual combat. Sparring with each other can help verify what we have learned and find problems. After all, our martial artists are not of a high rank and can only help to simulate the style of sparring. Therefore, the reserve team has always had this tradition. When there are no matches, we will organize a sparring session on Friday afternoons." This was also an effective way to increase the competitive atmosphere in the reserve team. Understood. Our martial arts club used to do similar exercises, Lu Qing replied casually. However, it wasn't as formal as today. The strength of both parties was also lower. All right then. Let's draw lots. Since we are going to verify what we have learned, there is no need to hide it. I reckon we will be exhausted after one round. Tu Jing picked up a piece of white paper on the table and scribbled a few numbers. He tore it into 6 pieces and messed them up. The one who gets 1 will be the first to spar. The one who gets 2 will be the second, and the one who gets 3 will be the last. They were in a small office attached to the training ground. There were surveillance cameras that had to be turned on to record the situation of the sparring session. It would be convenient for them to observe the process and analyze problems from the perspective of a bystander. It was much more formal than the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Lu Qing picked up a random piece and opened it. He couldn't help but smile. 3. You can only be the last. I'm 1. Tu Jing flashed the piece of paper. Team 2, why are we meeting again? Sun Jianlin bared his teeth. The piece of paper in his hand clearly had the word 1. This is called fate. Tu Jing laughed and turned to look at Lu Xiaofei and the rest. Who got 3? Me. Yu Wangyuan chuckled. He flipped his palm and revealed the piece of paper. Not bad. An experienced 4th pin mighty one. Lu Qing nodded. He was looking forward to the upcoming sparring session. Stepping into the arena room that was specially built for the training ground, Lu Qing leaned against the bulletproof and heatproof glass. He glanced at the cameras everywhere and watched as Tu Zheng and Sun Jianlin walked to the center and took up their stances. Yu Wangyuan acted as the temporary referee. Lowering his waist and releasing his aura, Tu Zheng's smile disappeared. Golden red flames seemed to be leaping out of his eyes. Even though they were dozens of meters apart, Lu Qing could feel the air getting hotter. It was like when he passed by an iron-smelting furnace when he was young and happened to see red water flowing out. It was as if the air conditioner in the training ground had malfunctioned and the high temperature from outside seeped in, slightly changing the environment with his aura. As expected of a mighty one close to physical invulnerability. Lu Qing nodded slightly. At the same time, he was filled with admiration and motivation to catch up. The battle between Tu Zheng and Sun Jianlin lasted for 3 minutes. Tu Zheng, who was obviously holding back, eventually defeated his opponent. He even gave Sun Jianlin some pointers as the team leader. This allowed Lu Qing, who was watching from the side, to have a new understanding of some of the moves in the dance stage chapter of the Fire Sect. It could be seen that other than the Fire Sect techniques, Tu Zheng had also learned the secret art that combined the Golden Bell shield and the undying flesh body. However, his core force was the fire force, which couldn't fully support the other martial arts, making the effect seem rather weak. Similarly, Sun Jianlin, who had completed the mutation with the Emperor Yen force, couldn't fully display the wonders of the dark sect's flickering light passing shadow. In the second battle, Jia Lu used a weapon. It was a short sword made of alloy that was about the length of a forearm. It had a faint red glow to it. When it was swung, sparks flew, and it was exceptionally terrifying. Lu Qing admired her swordsmanship with great interest and studied how she had integrated the secret arts of the Fire Sect into it. According to his master's description, at the inhuman stage, the power of punches and slashes was similar to the power of weapons. The greatest use of the latter was actually to expand the range of close-range attacks. An inch longer, an inch stronger. Of course, as an external object, there was a gap between weapons and the force that one had cultivated. If one used it directly without polishing it, it would only spoil the weapon. Unless one allowed flames and other substances to attach to the surface of the weapon, it wouldn't be very effective. Therefore, after obtaining a weapon, if a martial artist wanted to use it, they would have to follow the ancient method and constantly nourish it with the force. The modern theory was that through the repeated scouring of the force with low intensity, the molecular structure and composition of the material would gradually change. In the end, it would resemble the skin and muscles of the owner, to a certain extent, and complete the conduction with less loss. It was precisely because of this that even if one obtained a divine weapon that had been used by a physical invulnerability expert before, under the circumstances of incompatibility, it could only be used as a slightly sharper kitchen knife. Every master who specialized in weapons had a few companions that they had nourished for many years. In order to prevent damage, they had to start all over again. With the breakthrough in the research of bionics materials, custom-made weapons could greatly reduce the time needed to nourish them. This was a huge blow to the ancient style, but it was an inevitable trend in the development of the era. Scarlet light flashed and the sword's shadows were like rainbows. Jiao Lu's fight was spectacular and she had the upper hand for a while. Lu Xiaofei, on the other hand, wasn't in a hurry. She steadily defended the opening and avoided the attacks. When the opponent's momentum started to weaken, she suddenly exploded and attacked like fire. She was as fierce as the tide and instantly put the opponent in a difficult situation. After putting up a strong resistance a few times, Jiao Lu still couldn't turn the situation around. Not only that, she was sinking deeper and deeper. When she was on the verge of defeat, she had no choice but to admit defeat in frustration and reflect on her mistakes in the previous battle. Tu Zheng, Yu Wangyuan, and the rest interjected from time to time, voicing their own opinions and acting as a stepping stone for others. Lu Qing liked this kind of atmosphere very much. How his teammates played in private was their own business, but when it came to martial arts, they were very serious. They were in the golden age of vitality, drive, experience, mentality, and other factors combined together. After the exchange, Yu Wangyuan, who had been the referee for 2 rounds, stepped into the center. His muscles were firm and his face was round. Lu Qing, who was full of anticipation, didn't waste any time. He flicked his navy blue martial arts suit and left the edge unhurriedly. Tu Zheng, who had taken a break, would be the referee for this round. Seeing that both parties had gotten into their stances and were ready to go, he waved his right hand and exhaled loudly. Begin. Lu Xiaofei, Jiao Lu, and the rest were energized. They paid more attention to the battle than before. After Lu Cheng's battle with Peng Liyun at the end of April, he hadn't fought for more than 2 months. At that time, he already had the strength of a quasi-4th pin. What level was he at now? They didn't doubt that Lu Cheng had the possibility of winning. There wasn't much difference between a quasi-4th pin and a veteran 4th pin. The only difference was training, accumulation, and battle experience. Yu Wangyuan was definitely more powerful, but he wouldn't be so powerful to the extent of crushing his opponent. Both parties would have a 70-30 chance of winning. Improvisation was equally important. Following Tu Zheng's shout, Yu Wangyuan pounced out crazily. He dashed left and right in small steps, like a huge fire burning in a prairie. There wasn't anywhere for him to escape and he could only take it head-on. Lu Cheng had the heart to experience it. Like Peng Liyun, he chose not to dodge. He lowered his waist, gathered his qi and blood, and exploded his Dan force. Wearing a scarlet-red flame glove on his right fist, he swung it heavily and powerfully. Yu Wangyuan lowered his back and suddenly rushed forward. His speed reached the peak in an instant. During this process, he made use of the inertia to attack. He gathered his qi and blood and expanded his arm. Fire force condensed and poured into Yu Wangyuan's fist. He didn't release it outwards. Instead, it gently exploded from within, creating a huge pushing force that accelerated forward. In an instant, Yu Wangyuan's left fist increased in speed. It dragged out a shadow and hit Lu Cheng's flame glove. Boom! Scarlet light scattered like rain. Lu Cheng felt that his opponent's strength was surging like the sea and mountains. It was hard for him to take it head-on. He could only step on the ice crystals and slide backwards. With a slurp, he seemed to be running backwards. The 15th style of the fire sect, jet spray. During the winter break, Dong Xiaoyang had also used this move to defeat Lu Cheng. It was an imitation of the one-inch punch technique. It used the controlled explosion of one's own fire force to replace the bouncing of the joints and stretching of the fascia to create a double pushing force. It could be used to change the part of the attack or to stack up pure strength. It was a rather practical secret art. With one move, the flames scattered like rain and the person retreated like a push. Wang Yuan had gained the upper hand. He took a step forward and threw his right fist forward, doing jet spray again. As expected, Wang Yuan's strength is much stronger than Lu Cheng's. Lu Xiaofei, Jia Lu, and Sun Jianlin nodded as they watched. They heaved a sigh of relief. Once an expert makes a move, it's easy to tell if he's skilled or not. Jet spray was Wang Yuan's best secret art. It could be used until the opponent admitted defeat. Lu Cheng, who was sliding backwards, was getting more and more excited. He immediately circulated his qi and blood to stimulate the corresponding parts. Gotcha! Facing Wang Yuan's jet spray attack, he didn't retreat but advanced instead. He took half a step forward and stretched his body, turning into a giant with bulging muscles. He swung his arm and smashed down with his fist from a condescending position. The simplified battle formula. Chapter 546. Bam! The two fists collided. Both of their muscles swelled exaggeratedly, as though they were squeezing every ounce of energy out of their bodies. At the point of contact, air currents formed and turned into waves, spreading wildly in all directions. The loud, dull sound shook the transparent glass dozens of meters away, causing them to vibrate continuously. Clang! 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 Wang Yuan's arm went numb, and he swung back. His right fist made a cracking sound as his slightly deformed bones recovered. In terms of absolute strength, the double push was slightly weaker than the simplified fighting formula. Of course, this was under the situation where both parties were of similar realms and levels. His body shook, and he was about to lose his balance. Wang Yuan quickly retracted his qi and blood, stabilizing his center of gravity. He then spurted his Dan force again, directing it to his right arm. At this moment, he saw Lu Cheng's body suddenly grow taller. His clothes outlined the shape of all his muscles. His exposed skin, other than his face, had bulging veins that were green and black. His fist carried this violent force, swinging down as though he was smashing a mountain. Clenching his teeth, Wang Yuan pulled his arm back, raised his forearm, and quickly swung his fist in reverse to meet his opponent. Just as they were about to reach each other, the fire force exploded gently, creating a turbulent pushing force that allowed the fist to rise into the air like a rocket. With a bang, it broke through the air barrier and hit Lu Cheng's punch. With a crack, Wang Yuan's feet sank into the ground. Cracks extended outwards, intersecting with the scars from the two previous battles. His body trembled at high speed, his muscles undulating as though he was dispelling the remaining energy. As an experienced mighty one of the fourth pin, he wasn't disheartened by the setback. Without thinking, he did the Dan concentration again, preparing for an outburst. This time, he was going to use another technique of jet spray to turn the tables. When there was another chance, the fire sect was also very good at stimulating outbursts. It was just that he hadn't reached the realm of encountering gods in the void, so he couldn't use secret arts that were harmful to his body continuously like Lu Cheng. It was at this moment that Lu Cheng seemed to have predicted his next move based on his body language and the condition of his muscles. Instead of using the simplified fighting formula, he gathered and released his Dantian Qi and launched a low kick with his right foot. It was fast and vicious. This made Wang Yuan, who was still stuck in the ground, feel his heart tighten. He activated the fire force in advance and pulled his arm back fiercely, moving his back and pulling his left leg up. He tightened his muscles and resisted with a bang. His body was obviously swaying. The kick landed. Lu Qing swung his waist and his left leg stepped forward, as if he was stepping and kicking at the same time. Pa pa pa, 1 kick, 2 kicks, 3 kicks. Lu Cheng's 2 legs attacked consecutively, as though a chilly northern wind had been stirred up, forcing Yuan to retreat step by step. During this process, Yuan only felt that his ankles were starting to stiffen. The coldness slowly seeped into his flesh and blood. The surrounding space was becoming more and more like ice, sticking to his movements, making it harder and harder for him to dodge. A layer of sparkling and translucent light appeared on the ground, as if it was a cold winter square that had been watered. The 17th move of the ice sect, polar ground. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Cheng's feet gradually became heavier. The layer of ice thickened and the chill intensified. Yuan didn't wait any longer. He made a decision on the spot. A reddish gold light flashed in his eyes. His right leg, which was dodging, suddenly stomped heavily on the ground. However, this powerful stomp didn't cause any tremors. Instead, it caused the surroundings to become strangely stagnant. Boom! Dozens of centimeters in front of where Yuan's feet landed, where Lu Cheng's body was, the sound of air expanding suddenly erupted from the surface of the limestone. A reddish gold pillar of fire rose into the air. The temperature was extremely high and the flames were intense. The 28th move of the fire sect, Burning God. Before the flames had risen, Lu Cheng had already stopped in his tracks. He bent his back and narrowly avoided the flames of the Burning God. The flames flew into the air, sticking close to his body. They turned into a fountain and scattered helplessly. Bam! At this moment, Yuan had finished retracting his force. He pulled back his arm and struck Lu Cheng from the side. His fist seemed to be filled with blood, red and ferocious. Just as Lu Cheng straightened his back, moved his arm, and raised his forearm to make a parry, there seemed to be an explosion from within Yuan's right fist. His fist changed direction abruptly. Like the head of an agile snake, it strangely turned to one side and swung towards Lu Cheng's shoulder in the opposite direction. In a split second, he changed the direction of his attack. Another application of the unique skill of the fire sect, jet spray. Its change of direction was entirely driven by the force generated from the explosion of the fire force. There were no signs beforehand and it was hard to predict. It was the nemesis of the characteristics of realms such as absolute reaction and encountering gods in the void. When he first imparted the ice mirror to Lu Cheng, Geyser had reminded him not to completely rely on this skill. After so many years, others weren't fools. They had already thought of ways to deceive him. There weren't many, but there were definitely some. If he blindly followed the reflection of the ice mirror, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. In the past 2 years, Lu Cheng had already established the core position of the ice mirror in his fighting style. Although he would occasionally choose to make his own judgment and not blindly trust the ice mirror, he still trusted the ice mirror in most situations. If it wasn't for the fact that he browsed through the Dan stage chapter of the fire sect a few days ago and was alarmed by the shocking application of jet spray, he probably wouldn't have remembered his master's advice. At this moment, it was inevitable that he would be flustered and make a mistake in his panic. Luckily, he was already prepared. He pulled his spine and pulled back his shoulders. His entire body slanted, causing Yuan's sudden reverse swing to hit the air with a dull thud. Yuan's intent was like a raging fire. He expanded outwards, lowered his waist, gathered his chi and blood, and swung it away. Bam! He punched with his left fist towards Lu Cheng's waist. Halfway through, his force exploded. The snake head rose, opened his 5 fingers and fangs, and tore at his opponent's arm. The double push of jet spray was an explosive force within the body. No matter how controlled it would still cause damage. Therefore, compared to the Emperor Yen force, the fire force, which was gentler and more stable, complemented it well. It could help Yuan use it many times. Bam! 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 Yuan's fists were sometimes straight and sometimes curved, changing and sometimes heavy. This made Lu Qing tense up. He didn't dare to use his full strength, and he didn't dare to use all of his moves. In an instant, he was at a disadvantage. He dodged, turned, and dodged continuously. Yuan took a step forward and changed the direction of his fist, smashing it towards Lu Cheng's chin. Following which, he leaned his body, bent his elbow, and stomped on the ground. Bam bam bam. He closed in and attacked crazily. His moves were continuous, bringing along golden red sparks, creating a strong wind. Lu Cheng is still pretty strong. Jia Lu stroked her short sword, communicating with it emotionally, and sighed softly. If it were her, she would have been in a precarious situation under Yuan's attacks and was about to lose. They were both newbies, who had entered the high pin for less than a year. Why was the difference so huge? Yuan's continuous attacks aren't that simple. Pay attention to the shape of the remnants of his flames, said Lu Xiaofei enviously as she tilted her head. That was a combination of experience, technique, and proficiency. She couldn't be that experienced and ruthless. Jia Lu focused her gaze. Amidst the banging sounds, the streaks of golden red flames burning in mid-air seemed to have formed the outline of a flood dragon's head. Just waiting for the finishing touch, it would open its mouth and bite. This. Jia Lu suddenly thought of a unique skill, the 27th move of the fire sect, Red Dragon. When it was completed, the reserved fire force would be fully activated, creating an exaggerated effect of combining several attacks into one. At this moment, Lu Cheng, who was already reflected in the ice mirror, suddenly took a deep breath. The muscles on his chest all caved in. Following this force and the wind from his opponent's punch, he swung backwards and moved away in a strange manner. The flames on Yuan's fists were burning brightly. He was about to charge forward with his fists to add the finishing touch. However, Lu Cheng's eyes flashed with bloodlust. The sharp tip of his weapon seemed to have been placed on his opponent's neck. To Lu Cheng, the simplified version of the 9 words formula might be more useful than the original version. In an intense battle, a moment's difference could be the difference between victory and defeat. Yuan's body stiffened. His thoughts were in a mess. He didn't manage to add the finishing touch in time. The remaining fire force around him was getting weaker and weaker. Lu Cheng gathered his qi and blood and took a step forward. Wearing a scarlet-red glove on his right fist, he struck heavily from the side. After Yuan blocked it, his dan exploded again and his left arm rose again. Bam, bam, bam. He attacked with both fists. Sparks flew from his fists. They were heavy and scorching. Yuan could only continuously retreat and block. The rhythm was completely under Lu Cheng's control. As such, even if Yuan wanted to break free, he would be interrupted midway. If he wanted to be faster, he would be blocked by Lu Cheng's scorch heavy punch. His footsteps and fists were one and connected tightly. Lu Cheng was like a robot. He didn't know fatigue and continued to explode. He didn't give his opponent any chance to turn the tables. Bam, bam, bam. After blocking for an unknown number of times, Yuan's teeth were a little loose from the vibrations. Seeing that he had no other choice, he could only use his trump card. His breathing paused. The reddish gold in his eyes condensed and was tainted with some purple. At this moment, the ripples of Lu Cheng's ice mirror reflected the abnormality of his opponent. Without waiting any longer, he threw another scorch heavy punch. However, he didn't hit Yuan's body. Instead, he hit the void between the two of them. The scarlet-red flames condensed on the surface of his fist and almost turned white. It was heavy and heavy. Whoosh! The surrounding air ignited without any wind. The raging flames collapsed towards Emperor Yan and gathered towards Yuan. The 116th style of the fire sect, Flying Moth. This was the scorching fist. Wherever the high temperature passed, the air would be in a state of being ignited. When the time was right, the Emperor Yen force would attract the air to complete the contraction and increase the density. Once the density increased, the heat would be even stronger. The air would burn as well, like moths flying towards a candle flame. This move was rather difficult to master. Without control of the surroundings and self, there was no way to connect it. However, to Lu Cheng, it was just right. Flames surged in from all directions aggressively. Yu Wangyuan's heart tightened. He gave up on his preparations and raised his hand to block. He felt that even his respiratory tract was unbearably hot. As the flying moth came, Lu Cheng had already closed in. He threw a punch from the bottom up towards the sky. Yu Wangyuan had absolute reaction and hurriedly raised his arm to block. However, he felt that his opponent's fist passed by his side and stopped at his throat. He had made a mistake in his block. Due to the difference in density due to the high temperature, his visual judgment was slightly off. And this slight difference was the difference between victory and defeat. It wasn't that there was a problem with absolute reaction. It was that he didn't extend his arm enough to block. Flying moth into the flame, illusions before death. As the flames fell, Tu Zheng was stunned for a second. He raised his hand and said, "Lu Cheng wins." Phew. Although Lu Cheng had taken me by surprise and barely won, he had displayed the strength of a true fourth pin. He has already caught up to me. Lu Xiaofei looked at the figure in the arena and was silent. Chapter 547. In the middle of the field, Yu Wangyuan shook his body and shook off the sticky flames. He forced a smile and said, "When I noticed that you were using Emperor Yen force to propel Scorch Punch instead of alternating with Ice Spirit force, I should have guessed that you had mastered Flying Moth. Sigh, I was too careless." After all, Lu Cheng had only joined the club for less than a week. I haven't formed the concept of him mastering more fire sect secret arts. That's why I was at a disadvantage. Tu Zheng nodded and said, he didn't use ice force to lower the temperature, slow down the speed, and control it. He kept stacking Scorch Punch. Even if you didn't think of Flying Moth, you should be more careful. There must be something fishy going on. Seeing that they were reviewing and summarizing their gains and losses, Lu Cheng pondered and said, I had a problem with the way I changed the direction of jet spray. I shouldn't have just dodged and dodged. At that time, it might have been better to counterattack and use offense as defense. Yes, forcing jet spray to change to defense was the best choice. It's very important to grasp the rhythm and take the initiative, Tu Zheng gave a rather pertinent comment. Lu Xiaofei, Sun Jianlin, and Jia Lu joined in and discussed the details of the battle. Lu Qing seemed to have gained a few new perspectives and gained more experience. Cultivators often say that money, companions, techniques, and land are not a lie. He sighed to himself. No money? How can you practice martial arts if you don't have money? You can't even keep up with the nutrition. At the initial stage of body forging, one had to at least ensure that they ate enough meat every day. Otherwise, sooner or later, they would pee blood and their body would collapse. It was only because of the abundance of resources in the modern society that many people could practice martial arts as they wished. If it were in ancient times, it wouldn't be so easy. They could only wait for their talents to be discovered and nurtured. No training companions? No good opponents? Then it would be inevitable that they would not be able to see Mount Tai. The higher they went, the more they would fall into bottlenecks and eventually come to a standstill. Although Tu Zheng and Yu Wangyuan weren't good friends, they could still feel the effects of the brainstorm of martial artists of the same level from this sparring session. As for the cultivation method, it was definitely indispensable. If one wanted to rely on one's own strength to create something out of nothing and open up a path that was not inferior to the results of the hard work of generations of predecessors, it was inevitable that it would be wishful thinking. Even a freak like the martial sage would only be able to create something after the Thunder Sect cultivation method had been mastered. Only by standing on the shoulders of giants could one see higher and see further. In modern society, land was inseparable from wealth. What volcano laboratory? What ice sect simulation environment? How could ordinary forces afford it? While thinking, Lu Qing saw that the sparring session had ended. He returned to the training room of the dance stage and continued to study and practice his unique skills. Yuan watched as his figure disappeared into the doorway. He sighed with a hint of envy. Encountering gods in the void, self-reflection. That's really something. Up until now, I've only been able to use Flying Moth during practice. Once it's in a real battle, I can't use both at the same time. In less than a week, he had mastered Scorch and Flying Moth. This speed, tisk. Sun Jianlin shook his head. Lu Xiaofei said self-deprecatingly, a few days ago, I was still saying that I would strive to not be caught up by Lu Qing within a year. The words were still ringing in my ears, and he had already displayed the standard of a genuine fourth pin. Seriously, Sai, this is normal. To the heavenly sons of the era, it's normal for them to advance one pin in a year before reaching physical invulnerability. Compared to Lu Cheng's previous improvement speed, this is already very normal. We can only learn to accept it. Yuan sighed and smiled. Luckily, he will reach the threshold of physical invulnerability in the next stage. It won't be that fast anymore. There will definitely be a bottleneck. Tu Zheng had been silent all this while. At this moment, he asked thoughtfully, during this period, Lu Qing has been in the training room from morning till night? That's right. Other than resting from 11 a.m. to 12:30 a.m., he's always in the training room. It's not unreasonable for him to master Scorch and Flying Moth in less than a week. Yuan said with a sigh. Others were more talented than you, more restrained than you, and worked as hard as you. It was simply despairing. At the very beginning, he had thought that Lu Qing had neglected his training and relied entirely on his talent. Speaking of this, Yuan looked at Tu Zheng and forced a smile. Leader 2, don't worry. You are already close to physical invulnerability and have reached the realm of encountering gods in the void. The next step is to make the great leap and become a true mighty one. At that time, no matter how fast Lu Qing improves, it will have nothing to do with you and won't affect you. Tu Zheng was silent for a few seconds before laughing out loud. This is actually pretty good. With a strong opponent chasing behind me, I can improve faster. I still have a little more than a year to go before I reach 30. If I can't make the great leap, then my hopes will be slim. Now is the time for me to fight with my back to the wall and burn my boats. Although there were examples of Liang Yifan reaching physical invulnerability in his 30s, there were only a handful of them. 30 was still the threshold of physical invulnerability. One had to make a name for oneself early. Physical invulnerability experts were all in their prime. In the assistant team's office, Sun Tingting, who was wearing a pair of sunglasses and exquisite makeup, swaggered back to her seat. She opened the workgroup chat and tagged the deputy manager of the technical team. Compile the recordings of the reserve team's sparring session as soon as possible. They are rushing us. It just ended. Wiping cold sweat expression, replied the deputy manager of the technical team. At this moment, a lady in the foreign affairs team asked excitedly, the sparring session ended? Who did Lu Qing fight with? What was the result? Although it was a work group, everyone was rather interested in such matters and often gossiped together. He fought with Yuan and won. Sun Tingting pouted. Yuan, the senior fourth pin who retired from the military? Lu Qing is amazing, and he's not even 22 years old yet. He still has a total of 8 years to reach physical invulnerability. As expected of the heavenly son of the era. Endless potential. Amen and Huangbin were watching the discussions in the group. They felt excited and pressured at the same time. They couldn't help but look around the office and realize that many of their colleagues were deep in thought. In the end, they looked at each other. It was as though sparks were flying when their gazes collided in midair. However, for the next few days, Lu Qing followed his routine and didn't miss a single meal. He didn't arrange for additional transportation and left them with no place to show their prowess. They could only make use of the opportunity to exchange pleasantries and show concern for Lang Nuan to strengthen their impression of him. On Monday afternoon, Lu Qing didn't go to the training room. Instead, he followed Tu Zheng, Lu Xiaofei, and the rest to the big conference room in the southwest area. The setup here was similar to a classroom, but there was enough space for practice. This was the weekly physical invulnerability class. Coach Lu Yan and martial arts fanatic Guo Jia weren't present. Dragon King Chen Qitao, Empress Luo, Ning Zitong, and Optimus Prime Long Zhen were present. They sat in a row at the head of the table. It was Lu Cheng's first time here. He had only practiced the Fire Sex Dance stage chapter for a week. Furthermore, he had the notes of his predecessors for reference. He only had 1 or 2 questions, so he wasn't in a hurry to ask them. He listened quietly at the side. From the interactions between Tu Zheng, Yuan Yuan, and the rest with the physical invulnerability mighty ones, he was able to understand many things by analogy and broaden his horizons. No wonder Sister Ning said to try not to miss it. This is the benefit of being in a strong position. Seeing that the class was coming to an end, Lu Qing stopped being modest. He stood up, raised his hand and greeted politely. The 36th move of the Fire Sect, Devour, is a high-level application of Emperor Yen force. From the notes of our predecessors, the focus is on contraction and weight. When it reaches a certain level, it will naturally produce flashes and flames. However, I still can't find the critical point. Is there a problem with the technique? Hearing this, Chen Qitao, who had been keeping a straight face, stood up slowly. He walked to the center of the field, clenched his fist, and punched forward. Just as he raised his right fist, the surrounding airflow was ignited. Wisps and wisps of airflow were clearly organized, showing the flow of Emperor Yen force in his body. Wisps of flames condensed and contracted on the surface of the Dragon King's fist. They kept compressing and becoming ridiculously heavy. With a boom, a blazing white light exploded, dazzling the eyes. Lu Qing, Yuan Yuan, and the rest felt as though they were being swallowed by the flames. They could no longer see or feel anything else. If they were to take a direct hit, other than the flash, they would also be hit by the shockwaves and flames. Retracting his fist, the Dragon King looked at Lu Qing and asked in a low voice, "Do you understand now?" "Understood." Lu Qing answered blankly. The previous scene was still fresh in his mind. Wait a minute, this is no different from the description of the martial arts or the notes. What the Dragon King is saying is that you can't find the critical point because you are too weak. Then I should understand now. Lu Qing thought awkwardly. While he was answering, Chen Qitao had already left the conference room with his hands behind his back, announcing the end of the class. For the next few days, Lu Qing tried to use his Dan equilibrium to forcefully guide the contraction of Devour and achieved good results. After that, he eagerly began to master the new unique skill. On Friday afternoon, he came to the training ground of the reserve team in an extremely good mood. It was time for sparring again. Moreover, Little Fairy would be returning from America that day. After spending a few days with the elders of both sides, she would fly straight to Huacheng. Lu Qing casually picked up a paper ball and saw the word 2 written on it in bold strokes. "Who's in the second group?" he asked with a smile. "Me." Tu Jing chuckled and opened his palm, revealing a piece of paper with the word 2. Chapter 548. The lot drawing ended quickly. The first group was Lu Xiaofei versus Yuan Yuan. The second group was Lu Qing versus Tu Zheng. Sun Jianlin and Jia Lu were the last to enter the arena. After entering the arena and closing the thick glass door, Jia Lu jumped a little and waved her short sword. She was excited and exclaimed, "That's fast. It feels like only 2 to 3 days have passed since the last sparring session. It's pretty tight. Sometimes I wonder if it would be better to have sparring sessions once a month." Sun Jianlin slowly stretched his muscles and bones. Popping sounds came from all over his body. Tu Jing shook his head. That would be too long. If we don't apply the lessons we learned to actual combat, we will forget them very quickly. It's true that we won't have any substantial improvement in a week. However, we can use this opportunity to examine the problems that were hidden by our rapid improvement. That's not a problem, but why do I feel like I've been shot in the knee? Lu Qing laughed silently. Leader 2 is right. I feel like I'm stronger and more mature than last Friday. Lu Xiaofei rubbed her hands together and said eagerly. Yes. I'm also not the same person who lost to Lu Qing last Friday. I'm more cautious and stronger. Yuan added with a smile. It was only an internal sparring session. It was inevitable that they would be careless. Everyone seems to have a lot of fighting spirit and confidence. Tu Jing laughed loudly. He walked to the center of the arena and acted as the temporary referee. Lu Xiaofei and Yuan stood on his left and right respectively, with a distance of more than 20 meters between them. This atmosphere is pretty good. Lu Qing praised from the bottom of his heart. Yeah, as long as we don't eat together and fool around, I still like this kind of life. It's very suitable for practicing martial arts. Of course, it's another matter if I'm lonely and can't sleep well after returning home. Cuckoo would be here soon. There was no time for conversation. The match started quickly. Lu Xiaofei and Yuan couldn't be more familiar with each other. Every time they tested each other, they would engage in an intense exchange of fire. The scene was gorgeous. If the spectators closed their eyes, they would feel like they were in a battlefield filled with cannon fire. Yuan had obtained his 4th pin certification earlier than Lu Xiaofei. He was more mature, but his fighting style was more aggressive. It was more in line with the gist of trueness of fire-like invasion, and he firmly controlled the rhythm. Lu Xiaofei, on the other hand, was calm and composed, like a burning red flame. Although she was at a disadvantage, she did not panic. Finally, she caught the problem in the opponent's connection and launched a counterattack. Switching from defense to offense, Lu Xiaofei demonstrated her shocking explosive ability to Lu Qing and the rest. Her sacrificial explosion and force concentration stage ignited a prairie fire. Every step she took was firm and steady. Every move she made closed in, forcing Yuan to bring out his trump card in advance. It was the Purple Sun that he hadn't been able to use in his battle with Lu Qing last week. The 11th move of the Fire Sect, Purple Sun, a simplified physical invulnerability move, Purple Sun. This was a move that was both offensive and defensive. Its execution speed would not be faster than the internal explosion used by martial artists of the same realm, but it was a close-range defensive move. Even if there were not many openings, it could still be executed in time. The moment Purple Sun was executed, the space 5 centimeters in front of Yuan was immediately filled with the golden red flames that spewed out from his mouth and palm, creating a vortex. The golden red flames were quickly dyed purple, trapping Lu Xiaofei's fist. Her double explosion was unable to hit her opponent, only shattering the vortex. The purple flames were like arrows, shooting outwards and messing up the situation. Yuan seized the opportunity and regained the initiative. He controlled the rhythm and did not give Lu Xiaofei any chance to turn the tables, even if she did the same and used Purple Sunday. Lu Qing watched attentively. He realized that no matter if it was Yuan or Lu Xiaofei, once they used Purple Sun, their expressions would inevitably show signs of fatigue. Their bodily functions would also decrease to a certain extent. Therefore, he had a clear understanding of the exhaustion of this simplified physical invulnerability move. After the first battle, the few of them gathered together. With Yuan and Lu Xiaofei as the center, they summarized the battle and exchanged their views. After this matter was settled, the other 3 retreated and leaned against the edge of the glass that was resistant to high temperatures and attacks. Only Lu Qing and Tu Jing were left facing off against each other with Sun Jianlin in between. Tu Jing smiled and glanced at Lu Qing. He took a step back and measured the distance with his legs. When both parties were standing at their predetermined positions, he lowered his waist and extended his right hand forward. He got into a fighting stance and looked rather carefree. Lu Qing responded with a smile and got into his stance too. Before the referee could raise his hand, he suddenly saw golden red flames leaping out from his opponent's eyes. He could feel the illusory flames burning fiercely and sweeping towards him. No, they were not purely illusory. They had really heated up the surrounding airflow. As he breathed, his airway was burning and he could vaguely feel it burning. His aura interfered with reality and his mind shone into matter. Lu Cheng's bursting aura could only affect his opponent's spirit and suppress his opponent's mind. It was impossible for him to change the real environment. Even if the degree was very low, it could only be used as a form of harassment. This was a mystical ability that could only be possessed by someone close to physical invulnerability. Impressive. He channeled his ice force and condensed crystals into the inner walls of his nostrils to reduce the temperature of the airflow that entered his body. This was to prevent the airflow from harming his more delicate and weaker respiratory system. To an inhuman, not breathing for a few minutes wasn't a big deal. However, that was under the circumstances where there was no consumption of energy or internal training. In actual combat, one couldn't hold their breath all the time in order to ensure that one's body was in the best condition. Sun Jianlin looked left and right and took 2 steps back. He swung his arm down abruptly and said, "Begin." Tu Zheng took a step forward with his right leg. It was as though the locomotive of a high-speed train was pulling his body forward. With a clang, he was not far away from Lu Cheng. The high temperature and strong wind that he created could almost blow his opponent away and burn his eyes. Invading like fire. Just as he stopped, he had already retracted his chi and blood. His right arm swung out along with the eruption of a volcano. He clenched his fist tightly and the golden red flames intertwined. Lu Qing didn't do any dodging. Now wasn't the time to practice his body movement. Only by experiencing more would he be able to fit his predetermined plan. Hence, he used force concentration and placed both his feet together. He used one hand to shield his face and the other to pull back diagonally. He swung out violently. The scarlet flames that were close to white stuck to the surface of his fist, as though they were going to burn and tear apart the enemy. Bam! Tu Zheng's fist exerted force in advance and hit the empty space. The golden red flames flowed out and gathered into a ball before collapsing rapidly. Boom! The dazzling white light blinded Lu Cheng's retina. The wind and waves in front of him surged forward. The flames engulfed him like a torrential rain and flood, as though they were going to swallow him whole. The 36th move of the fire sect, Devour. Tu Zheng had used fire force to execute the Devour move that Lu Cheng had asked him about last week. It was as though he was trying to prove something. Lu Cheng had already thought of a countermeasure. He didn't panic. A layer of ice armor instantly formed on his face, limbs and chest. It reflected the scarlet glow and flowed with extraordinary splendor. Bam bam bam. Waves of flames hit different parts of his body like a torrential rain, melting the ice layer and turning it into water. It moistened the ground but quickly evaporated. Without this additional defense, Lu Cheng's skin would have been burned and his body would have suffered injuries. Although he could recover after a period of time through the vigorous exchange of old and new injuries, he would still feel uncomfortable for a while. After mastering the realm of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection, the 2 old scars on his body gradually faded away and looked brand new. Bam! The violent airwaves were neutralized by Lu Cheng's scorching punch. His feet didn't move an inch and his center of gravity didn't waver. In the lake in his heart, the water froze into ice. The clarity of the ice acted as a mirror, reflecting his surroundings and replacing his eyes to grasp the situation. Lu Cheng suddenly realized that things weren't going well. He tilted his body abruptly and his muscles expanded, rubbing against the air barrier at high speed. He raised his left hand again and blocked in front of his face. At this moment, Tu Zheng threw out a punch with his left fist that looked casual but was in fact tightly connected. The surface of his fist was golden red and tinged with purple. It was heavy and heavy. Whoosh! The surrounding airflow suddenly collapsed inwards. The already hot air was ignited in an instant and turned into patches of scarlet red that pounced towards Tu Zheng's fist. Wherever it passed, Lu Qing blocked it. Previously, it was arrows that came from the inside out. Now, it was raindrops that came from the outside in. The 116th move of the fire sect, Flying Moth. Together with the changes in the environment caused by the momentum, this was its true form. It didn't need to be prepared with continuous scorching punches like Lu Qing. It was swift, ruthless, and dreamy. Bam! As Lu Qing turned, he stirred up a strong wind that blew away many of the flying moths. He relied on the remnants of his ice armor and his own strength to resist the attack. Taking a step forward, Tu Zheng closed in and punched out with his right fist. It was heavy and ruthless, as though he wanted to use the visual error caused by the density of the airflow to defeat his opponent. However, when Lu Qing used the ice mirror as the core to make an effective defense, his fire force exploded silently, giving his fist a second push. It strangely changed its position and smashed fiercely into Lu Qing's shoulder. The use of jet spray was extremely appropriate at this moment. Captain Tu seems to be very serious today. Jia Lu muttered to herself, amused and surprised. Usually, he would hold back when he fought. Swallowing and Flying Moth were all moves that Lu Qing had asked about or used before. Does this count as half a lesson? Sun Jianlin casually mentioned. Which martial artist wasn't competitive and had the desire to suppress their opponent? They were unwilling to miss any detail. Bang bang bang. Lu Qing's footprints were left behind as he fought and retreated. Gradually, he was forced to the edge of the arena. Behind him was the transparent glass that separated the arena from the training ground. Pa! Tu Zheng's left fist was like a venomous snake. Suddenly, he lifted his head and brushed past Lu Qing's arm, which was hammering downwards to block the attack, before shooting towards his throat at lightning speed. Lu Qing bent his back halfway and leaned back, allowing his opponent's fist to reach the clouds. In this twisted posture, he swung his right arm backward, turning it into a whip and lashed it towards Tu Zheng's lower abdomen. Tu Zheng didn't panic. He shrunk his shoulders and swung his arms slightly to counter Lu Qing's single whip. At this moment, he suddenly heard an explosion coming from the horizon. It was muffled and unclear. No, it didn't come from the horizon. It came from Lu Qing's wrist and fist. Bam! Lu Qing's arm that was swung backward bounced back. His fist seemed to spurt out a tail of flames as it shot towards the sky like a rocket. It avoided Tu Zheng's block and blasted towards the area between his neck and chest. Fire Sect's 15th move, Jet Spray. For the past week, other than studying the swallow move, his focus had been on practicing jet spray. With his control over his body, it wasn't difficult for him to perform a double explosion. It was just that Emperor Yen force was more violent than fire force and caused more damage to the body. If not for Lu Qing's precise control, he wouldn't have been able to execute it consecutively. However, he also couldn't do it as easily as Tu Zheng and continuously execute it. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. The fist rapidly enlarged in his eyes. Tu Zheng's expression changed slightly. The muscles on his chest caved in and even the sound of his bones cracking could be heard. In an instant, the area above Tu Zheng's chest caved in. His body floated backwards, causing Lu Qing's fist to hit empty air. Great! Seeing that his opponent had also mastered jet spray, Tu Zheng's eyes flashed with a reddish gold light as he got more excited. No matter what he thought in private, once he entered a battle, the stronger his opponent was, the more excited he would be. When Lu Qing straightened his back like a spring, Tu Zheng lowered his center of gravity and gathered his qi and blood. Following the explosion of Dan force, he threw a punch forward. His martial arts suit bulged inch by inch as though there were flood dragons swimming underneath. They gathered at the surface of his fist and condensed into a reddish gold light that rapidly collapsed inward. Fire Sect's 36th move, Swallow. Seeing this, Lu Qing straightened his back and followed up with force concentration. Using Dan equilibrium to guide the flood dragons, he threw a punch forward. The reddish-white light turned into a ball of flames and instantly contracted. It was the same swallow, but a different force. The appearance of the white ball of flames was heavy and heavy, pulling Tu Zheng's reddish-gold light. Boom! Light exploded and illuminated the entire arena. More than half of the formed shockwaves surged towards Tu Zheng. Flames shot out continuously like rain and hit the waves one by one. Just like how jet spray was more suitable for fire force, Swallow was a perfect match for Emperor Yen force. It was slightly better than fire force and had a slight counter effect. Using Dan equilibrium as a guide, Lu Cheng had greatly reduced the gap between him and Tu Zheng in terms of level, experience, and proficiency. Using the swallow style in front of Emperor Yen, this is my chance. Lu Cheng's muscles bulged and he pushed his body forward, stirring up a strong wind that accelerated the flow of flames. Tu Zheng raised his left hand and blocked in front of his head. His muscles bulged like a balloon and pushed outwards to offset the shockwaves and deflect the arrows of flames. Bam bam bam. His clothes were torn apart by the reddish-red flames. Scorch marks appeared on his skin one after another. Lu Cheng took the initiative to slow down his pace. While his opponent was defending passively, he visualized Emperor Yen in his mind. His core was the heavy Vairocana. This Vairocana wrapped around the Vairocana crashed into the boundless cold. Mutated version of severe warning. Lu Cheng took half a step forward and punched out from his waist with his left fist. Everywhere it passed, the colors seemed to darken. Tu Zheng's eyelids twitched. His eyes immediately turned reddish gold and were dyed purple. Phew! He raised his palms and opened them in front of him. Faint purple flames gushed out and intertwined with the flames in his mouth, forming a dreamy whirlpool that blocked Lu Cheng's punch. Fire Sec's 11th move, simplified physical invulnerability, Purple Sun. Poof! Lu Cheng's gloomy left fist was like a fire extinguisher. As soon as it hit the purple vortex, it dissipated into thin air. There was no follow-up jet of counterattack. Boom! Gloomy darkness exploded and purple sparks flew everywhere. Tu Zheng's body swayed and retreated more than 10 meters, as though he was trying to catch his breath. Lu Cheng's qi and blood circulated and stimulated his body. Using the simplified attainment formula, he caught up with Tu Zheng and raised his right fist. In just a few seconds, the offensive and defensive positions were switched. Seeing this, Lu Xiaofei and the others were slightly stunned. They had a deeper understanding of Lu Cheng's cruelty. Seeing that Lu Cheng was closing in on him, Tu Zheng's eyes narrowed. His reddish gold eyes painted a complicated picture. The surrounding airflow increased in temperature. Lu Cheng felt as though he had been thrown into a blast furnace. His body was melting inch by inch. Countless cracks appeared on his ice mirror and it turned into water. This was the combination of a secret mental skill and an environment that changed his aura slightly. This was the Fire Sec's secret skill, the 335th move, Infernal Purgatory. With a thought, he drew the forwarding formula. Lu Cheng's ice mirror quickly stabilized, but his movements were inevitably sluggish. It was this delay that allowed Tu Zheng to leap forward without lifting his leg. He swung his arm and smashed his fist towards his opponent's head. Lu Cheng had just raised his arm and got into a stance when he ignited the fire force. His fist turned diagonally and hit his opponent's shoulder. Jet spray again. Lu Cheng lowered his waist and shoulders and leaned back slightly to avoid the attack. His other hand swung outwards, intending to counterattack. Heavy and heavy. At this moment, Tu Zheng's fist made another dull sound. As though it had received another push, it swung sideways and stopped right beside Lu Cheng's neck. Lu Cheng couldn't dodge in time. Triple push. Tu Zheng had actually completed the second change of direction. This was the highest level of jet spray. He was close to physical invulnerability and had reached the realm of encountering gods in the void. He could control his body precisely and had barely mastered it. He had split the fire force into internal and external parts and separated them. He would first explode outwards before exploding inwards. This was his first time using it today. Lu Qing wasn't the only one stunned. Even the referee, Sun Jianlin, and the rest were stunned. Impressive. Lu Qing kept his stance and praised from the bottom of his heart. As expected of a mighty one who was close to physical invulnerability. You're not bad yourself. Tu Zheng, who had won the match, was in a good mood and gave him a thumbs up. Leader 2, you were holding back just now. For the Battle of the Kings? That's not enough. Wang Yuan and the rest gathered around and lamented with complicated expressions. I just mastered it. Tu Zheng replied humbly. Alright, let's exchange our views on the match just now. After Sun Jianlin defeated Jiao Lu, the sparring session ended. The technical team started to work on the video. At this moment, someone in the Longhu Club work group asked curiously, how was the sparring session for the reserve team today? Who did Lu Qing fight with? He fought with Leader Tuesday. Sun Tingting thought for a few seconds and replied with 3 words. What was the result? The girl from the Foreign Affairs team gossiped. Is there a need to ask? Sun Tingting replied with a smiley face. That's true. The rest chimed in. Chapter 550. The staff of the Longhu Club weren't surprised that Lu Qing lost to Tu Zheng. On the contrary, they felt that it was only natural. Even if he was the heavenly son of the era, he had only reached the inhuman stage for 11 months. How could he compare to Tu Zheng, who had been close to physical invulnerability for more than a year? It would be weird if he won. How could a 1 in 1,000 years freak appear again in 20 years? Sitting in a small cubicle, Almond stared at the computer screen on her desk. She didn't feel disappointed and thoughts kept flashing through her mind. After joining the club, she specially bought the autobiographies of the Dragon King and other physical invulnerability experts to understand the commonalities of martial artists. She didn't want to offend the target of her service. If that happened, not only would she fail to get promoted, she might even lose her job. From those books, she realized that most of the mighty ones cared about winning and losing. The only difference was the extent. As the heavenly son of the era who had the potential to reach physical invulnerability, Lu Qing should have a similar mentality. Although it was just an internal practice match, he would most likely feel depressed. It wouldn't be too much, but it would definitely be there. At this time, she could pretend to meet him by chance, praise him a little, express her admiration and envy for his bright future. That would earn her a good impression and recognition. If he had lost a crucial match, she might not dare to go. At that time, martial artists would either be like a powder keg and urgently need to vent their emotions. Otherwise, they would feel so bad that they wanted to be alone and didn't want to be disturbed. At this level, it was just right. Not showing. Almond glanced at Huang Bin, who wasn't far away. She saw him staring at the computer intently and typing furiously. He didn't have any other reaction. He's chatting in the group chat. Most guys aren't as meticulous as girls. Almond picked up the cup and walked out of the door calmly. She headed to the washroom, intending to clean the cup without arousing any suspicion. After entering the washroom, she placed the cup at the corner of the sink. She turned and walked to the stairwell. With light steps, she came to the first floor. Outside the reserve team training ground in the northwest, Almond had just arrived when she saw Lu Qing. She was delighted. Just as she was about to speak, she realized that he had turned into the dance stage training room and closed the door with a bang. I'm 1 step behind. So be it. Almond stomped her feet helplessly. After waiting for a while and seeing that her target wasn't showing any signs of coming out, she could only return to the assistant team office. In the training room, Lu Cheng's phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was a message from Ku. Hit the ground. The flight landed at Gaofan's airport. The corners of his mouth curled up, and the little bit of gloominess he felt earlier vanished into thin air. Welcome home, he said with a silly smile. After that, he added a hug emoji. Yenjika replied, how was the fight with Tujing just now? Let me give you some guidance. Previously, it was the landing stage of the plane. I lost to his jet spray and changed direction twice. Lu Qing described honestly. They talked about this topic for a while until Yenjika got off the plane, took her luggage, and went back home with her parents. Then they stopped talking. Lu Cheng's mood had long returned to normal. He once again immersed himself in practicing the various unique skills of the dance stage chapter of the fire sect. When it was time for dinner, he was about to pack up and go to the dining room to fill his stomach when he suddenly received a picture from the girl. It was a picture of her fair and slender palms and the oily grilled eggplant covered with crispy peas and green and red. Lu Qing couldn't help but swallow his saliva when he saw it. Old Lu barbecues eggplant. Shouldn't you be going to get rid of your jet lag? Lu Qing asked with a confused expression. Yenjika replied, blushing expression. Can I say that I'm too excited to sleep after returning to Shoshan? Hee, I'll make you envious. After sending this message, she sent over a few pictures. There were close-up shots of the grilled eggplant from various angles, chicken tips, beef, pork ribs, and other skewers. You're welcome. I'm just a good person. Covering mouth expression, she replied. Looking at the pictures, she's with Sister Jingjing and Song Li. Lu Qing flipped through the pictures one by one. Suddenly, he laughed and replied, thinking about the environment of their home, I feel that it's not compatible with our little fairy. Old Lu's barbecue shop wasn't dirty, but similar places were inevitably a little greasy and messy. Who's going to bring me to a roadside stall to eat dumplings, noodles, steamed dumplings, and, etc.? Yenjika replied. You're the one who led me astray. It's you. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He wasn't in a hurry to go to the dining room. Instead, he leaned against the wall of the training room and typed a reply with both hands. After joking around for a while, Yenjika replied with a red heart emoji, I'm going to eat. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, she added, I heard from the lady boss that this place is going to be demolished. They have to move. Move to where? Lu Qing asked with concern. It's not decided yet. Anyway, Song Li added her WeChat. We'll know when we ask. Yenjika exhaled and said, it's a little complicated. Their home has been here for so many years, as if it will never change. But in the end, they still have to move. Yeah, everything in my memory is no longer the same as before. Lu Qing chimed in. In the poem, the peach blossoms are still the same, but the human face is no longer the same. But sometimes, it's not just the human face, but the peach blossoms are also different. All the memories will settle in the mind and can't be traced back. After exclaiming a few words, Lu Qing changed the topic and asked casually, where did Sister Jingjing decide to go in the end? Xing Jingjing had graduated this year. With her dance stage cultivation and powerful supernatural ability, she had received many invitations. We were just talking about this. Sister Jingjing feels that the martial arts circle is relatively simpler and doesn't require much social interaction. It's more suitable for her. Yenjika said, she plans to go to the Guanwai League. The salary there isn't high, but there are physical invulnerability and inhuman experts who are good at illusions. She can learn something suitable. That's not bad. Lu Qing didn't talk about his wife's best friend anymore. He planned to call Director Xing to congratulate him. The Guanwai League is also one of the top forces. While Yenjika was enjoying the food, Lu Qing walked out of the training room and headed to the dining hall. The sky outside was gloomy and shaking. It seemed that there would be a rainstorm. Mr. Lu. Amen and Huang Bin, who were waiting at the entrance of the dining hall, shouted at the same time. They didn't know what to say in the presence of each other. Lu Qing nodded with a smile. When he was about to walk past them, he suddenly thought of something. Didn't you say that the club reserved tickets for the home match for us? Yes. Huang Bin rushed to answer. Mr. Liu, how many tickets do you want? Almond thought quickly and asked, do you want tickets for the away match? Away match? Lu Qing pondered and said, if it's possible, give me 2 tickets for every match until mid-August, regardless of home or away match. Yan Zhika came to watching. He couldn't let her stay at home all the time. That would be boring. If it was a home match, he could treat it as a date. If it was an away match, he could leave a day earlier. It could be considered a short holiday. TSK, just thinking about it makes me happy. Okay. Almond agreed without hesitation. This made Huang Bin, who was hesitant and unsure if the away match could be done, feel vexed. I was really stupid just now. With Lu Cheng's status and the fact that he was favored, who would take such a small request seriously? If the rules were as such, he would follow the rules. If the rules didn't have such a rule, he would add it. Thank you. Lu Cheng thanked him sincerely. He walked into the dining hall and saw that Tu Zheng and the rest were there too. Everyone's schedule today is very similar. No wonder it's the weekend. After sighing and greeting, Lu Cheng took a table and filled it with many dishes. Halfway through the meal, Zhang Shouyan from the Foreign Affairs team came in hurriedly. After looking around, he pushed his gold-rimmed glasses and said, just in time. Since everyone is here, I have something to trouble you with. What is it? As the team leader, Tu Zheng was duty-bound to ask. There was a problem in the south previously. All the experts of the security company were scattered there. Now we have a mission, but we can't find an inhuman mighty one to hold the fort. Zhang Shouyan briefly explained the cause and effect. Longhu Club naturally had a security company in its business. However, their focus was different from the others. They were one of the military's sock puppets and most of their missions were overseas. What mission? It would be too much of a delay if we were to go overseas. The Battle of the Kings will be held in late August. Tu Zheng got straight to the point. Zhang Shouyan swallowed his saliva and said, we don't have to go overseas. Just stay in Huacheng. The Samano royal family from Europe is coming from Beijing and will be here for 2 days. They have their own core security team. We only need to be on the lookout at the periphery. Those trivial matters will be taken care of by professionals. Now we just lack 2 inhuman mighty one to hold the fort and prevent any accidents. Speaking till here, he paused and said, you guys know about the Samano royal family, right? Yes, the vampire family, Jia Lu answered with a smile. The Samano royal family practiced the inheritance of the dark sect. Their ancestors could be traced back to BC. There were many physical invulnerability experts in each generation, causing the mutation of the bloodline to still flourish to this day. Superhumans would appear from time to time. They were fast, strong, resilient, and had a high thirst for blood. The vampires in American novels were based on them. In order to maintain this mutation, those with a bright future would marry close relatives. To outsiders, they were known as the purified bloodline. It's good that you know. Other than being on the lookout at the periphery, we also have the intention of keeping an eye on them in case they can't control their impulses and make any mistakes, which could lead to bad consequences. It's better to be safe than sorry. Zhang Shouyan explained. Who's going? We need 2. The remuneration will be distributed in the form of benefits. Isn't this a mission similar to Spider? It's troublesome. Lu Qing pretended not to hear. Seeing that no one responded, Tu Zheng smiled and said, as usual, let's draw lots. Okay. The rest nodded. Tu Zheng found a piece of paper and tore it into 6 pieces. He wrote the word go on 2 of the pieces and crumpled them into balls. He placed them in a bowl and got Zhang Shouyan to stir them before bringing them back. Lu Qing reached out and grabbed one of the balls. He unfolded it and saw a word clearly written on it. Go. This luck. Lu Qing laughed at himself and showed the results to the rest. Who else? Asked Zhang Shouyan. Me. Jia Lu raised her hand helplessly. P.S. Let me tell you in advance. Tomorrow, there are 2 sessions. One is at noon and the other is before midnight. I have to go to the hospital in the afternoon. My eyes are not feeling well. It's mainly my right eyelid that keeps twitching. It's been a few days. Chapter 551. After Jia Lu raised her hand, Tu Zheng, Yu Wangyuan and the rest followed suit. All of them were blank. Seeing that Lu Cheng and the rest didn't object strongly, Zhang Shouyan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "It's settled then. Come to the club tomorrow as usual. There will be a car to send you there. The specific arrangements will be explained to you by the people over there." All right. Since he had joined the Longhu Club, Lu Cheng was mentally prepared for such missions. Furthermore, it wasn't a dangerous mission since it only lasted for 2 days during the weekend. After seeing Zhang Shouyan off, he picked up his phone and told Yan Zhika about his bad luck. Yan Zhika quickly sent an emoji of covering her mouth and said, "I'm not laughing." Lu Cheng smiled. Covering face expression and sighing expression, "Cuckoo, you've changed. You weren't like this in the past. You only knew how to comfort me. When did you learn my lines?" Yan Zhika sent an emoji of sitting blankly. After chatting for a while, Lu Cheng threw his little gloominess to the back of his mind. While eating, he searched for information on the Samano royal family and had a heated discussion with his wife. The next morning, after his training, he arrived at the club in the familiar SUV. He saw Jia Lu in black loose-fitting clothes. Her hair was tied into a ponytail. Faint traces of makeup surrounded her bright and watery eyes. She held a sheathed dagger in her hand. While looking around, she looked valiant. However, she didn't change her attitude as a bystander. "You're dressed quite professionally." She glanced at Lu Cheng and chuckled. Lu Cheng's clothes were also loose-fitting. However, it wasn't a martial arts suit. He didn't want others to see through his identity. The navy blue color set off his temperament well. "You're not bad yourself." Lu Cheng replied politely. "Sigh, this kind of thing is quite annoying. If I have the time, I'd rather practice my martial arts and practice my moves. Wouldn't that be better?" Jia Lu waved the dagger in her hand. Currently, she was at the stage where her desire to improve was the strongest. She couldn't wait to be disturbed. Although the competitive atmosphere and competitive spirit would always exist, there would also be peaks and valleys. It was impossible for it to be so strong all the time. When a few people got along with each other for a long time, this aspect would fade. Just like the reserve team from before, it would only become active again when a newcomer joined and disturbed the tranquility. Because of this, Jia Lu was stimulated by Lu Cheng. She also noticed that everyone else was working hard. How could she be willing to slow down and waste time? Lu Cheng smiled and said, "Anyway, I've already drawn it. Saying more will only ruin my mood. Let's just treat it as an adjustment and save energy for later." "That's the only way." Before Jia Lu could finish her sentence, she saw a black car drive over and stop in front of her. "Good morning, both of you." A man whose thighs and calves were almost the same size pushed open the door and greeted them with a smile. He also had a ponytail, wore Hawaiian-style shorts, and wore purple-rimmed glasses. He looked more like a director than a security company employee. Of course, if he didn't have a gun, he would look more like, "Hello." Lu Cheng and Jia Lu retracted their expressions and returned the greeting politely. "Sorry to trouble both of you. Let's talk in the car," said the ponytail man as he showed his ID. As inhuman mighty ones, they were bold with their skills. Also, they noticed that the driver was Zhang Shouyan from the External Affairs team, so they sat in the back seat. After closing the car door, the ponytail man went to the front passenger seat. He turned his head and said, "My name is Xue Jian. I used to be a member of the club, but now I'm working in a security company." You don't have to worry too much this time. Everything will be handled by professionals. You just have to follow the arrangements and wait within a certain area. Make sure that if anything happens, there won't be no one and you'll be able to make it in time. There are many people in the day, so it's best if both of you work together. At night, you can take turns. Lu Cheng and Jia Lu nodded at his words. Their expressions became relaxed. After Xue Jian finished his explanation and confirmed a few questions, they took out their phones at the same time and went about their own business. In the next few hours, they went to the airport, to the hotel, and finally to the grand banquet hall. Throughout the entire process, they didn't have to watch the surveillance cameras or be on high alert. It was all other people's business. In other words, before an accident happened, they were just there to fill in the blanks. In the luxurious yet low-key banquet hall, Lu Cheng and Jia Lu stood in a corner, wearing undetectable earphones. They looked like the most ordinary security guards. However, it was just an appearance. The unprofessional Lu Cheng would occasionally look at his phone screen with a smile and type furiously. At other times, his eyes would be half closed, making use of the free time to think about the remaining secret arts of the fire sect in the dance stage chapter and simulate them in his mind. Jia Lu paced back and forth. This was the 39th time she had done this today. Looking to the side, she sighed, half out of curiosity. Aren't you bored? Are you okay? Lu Cheng gave him a puzzled look. You seem to be having a good time. Jia Lu thought for a long time but couldn't think of the phrase, enjoying oneself. That's because I have a wife. You probably need a boyfriend. Lu Cheng ridiculed, isn't it the same everywhere you play with your phone? Jia Lu was speechless at first. In the end, she said earnestly, in our martial arts school, people who are addicted to their phones will be slapped in the palm. You guys are so pitiful. Lu Cheng didn't notice the insinuation. He smiled and pointed to the front. Then let's enjoy the scenery. I have to say, the members of the Samano royal family are quite good-looking. They were more than just good-looking. They were all handsome men and women with black hair and red eyes. They were more than enough to make movies or TV series. I'm sick of it. I want to get into a stance and practice a set of martial arts now. Jia Lu looked to the front, feeling lonely. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He was about to tease her when Xue Jian's voice suddenly came from the earpiece. At your 9 o'clock, there's a little prince acting strangely. He's a powerful superpower user. One of you will follow him. If he wants to go out or do something bad, stop him. Okay. Lu Cheng agreed and turned to look at Jia Lu, hinting with his eyes, aren't you bored? Here comes the trouble. Jia Lu turned her head and pretended not to see or hear. Lustful. Lu Cheng criticized in his heart. He strode towards the direction Xue Jian had described. He saw a 13 or 14-year-old boy moving towards the washroom. He was wearing a tuxedo with a red bow tie. His black hair was spiked back and his red eyes were like gems. He looked meticulous and childlike. That's him. Prince Cinda, follow him. Keep a distance. Xue Jian's confirmation came from Lu Cheng's earpiece. Lu Cheng pressed his ear and slowed down his movements. He followed Prince Cinda into the corridor leading to the washroom. After a few steps, he saw Prince Cinda's ears twitch. He suddenly turned and stood in the shadows outside the washroom. His body quickly darkened as if he had blended into the shadows. But that was only relatively speaking. Prince Cinda's silhouette could still be seen at a glance. He stood there motionless with his shoulders shrunk. It was as if he had turned invisible. Do you think I'm King blind? Lu Cheng was confused. He thought for a while and walked over. He smiled and spoke in a foreign language. Hello, this is the women's washroom. The men's washroom is a little in front. Prince Cinda's figure gradually became clearer. He was stunned. You can see me? I'm not blind. For a moment, Lu Cheng was speechless. Prince Cinda blinked his red eyes in confusion and said, they all say that my shadow form ability is very outstanding. It's impossible to see or find me. I get it now. You must be a very, very powerful mighty one, right? I'm more than willing to accept the evaluation. But what happened just now has nothing to do with mighty one. Anyone with normal eyesight can see them. They should go see an ophthalmologist. Lu Qing forced a smile. Just as you expected. I knew I could meet a mighty one this way. Prince Cinda muttered and revealed a childlike smile. No, he was a child. Sir, can you be my opponent? Let me practice my superpower. No, it's not a battle. I just want to confirm what level my superpower is at. My family, my friends, and my servants are all very polite to me. I always feel that I'm not very sure. Sir, is that okay? Lu Qing was stunned. He spoke into the mini walkie-talkie on his collar. Incoming. What's the situation? Xue Jian became nervous. Lu Qing deliberated over his words and replied solemnly, I think I've met a scammer. P.S. This chapter is a little short. Pack up and go out. Go see an ophthalmologist. If there's nothing wrong, the second watch will be at midnight. Chapter 552. What? On the other end of the walkie-talkie, Xue Jian was confused. He almost shouted, speak human language. Lu Qing repeated his explanation. The little rascal is acting strangely because he wants to find someone to spar with. Hurry up and find your parents. I'm not in the mood to play with him. Although it's not a bad idea to see the dark sex legacy, this isn't the right place. Understood, Xue Jian replied after a few seconds of silence. He first informed the head of the Samano royal family security team before waiting for further instructions. Seeing Lu Qing mumbling something that he couldn't understand, little Prince Cinda's eyes suddenly deepened, turning from blood red to dark red. Circles of ripples spread out from his eyes, like the surface of a calm lake repeating itself over and over again. It made Lu Qing feel as though he was staring at a pendulum swinging left and right, or the hands of a clock ticking away. His mind became more and more empty, his thoughts scattered, and his eyelids became heavier and heavier, as though he had fallen into a dream. The ancient scroll of darkness, the progenitor of hypnosis. Noticing Lu Qing's eyes becoming unfocused, Prince Cinda couldn't help but smile. He issued an order in a low voice, turn back. Lu Qing didn't move and continued standing there. Turn back. Prince Cinda raised his voice, but Lu Qing remained as steady as a mountain. He didn't move an inch. What's going on? Prince Cinda looked over and saw that Lu Qing's eyes weren't focused, but there was a sense of superiority in the depths of his eyes. It was as though Lu Qing was looking down at him with a calm, indifferent, and emotionless attitude. It was like the gaze of the gods recorded in ancient books. All of a sudden, Xinde shuddered, his whole body trembling. Have you had enough fun? Lu Qing teased. I've had enough. Prince Cinda bit his lip and replied. Suddenly, he stomped on the ground with his black leather shoes and pounced forward. He turned into a blurry shadow and dashed into the depths of the corridor at high speed. However, such a quick movement only produced a slight friction sound, like a fleeting light in a peaceful dream. Bam! The air barrier shattered, and a strong wind blew. A dull thud entered Prince Cinda's ears. His vision blurred as he saw a young man in loose, navy blue clothes appear in front of him. The young man extended his right hand and gestured for him to stop. Tap. He stepped on the ground again and changed direction as if he was tap dancing. He tried to go around from the other side. There was another explosion of stellar energy. The same person, the same posture, and the same expression appeared before Xinde's eyes. He changed his body shape several times and even pretended to retreat, but he still couldn't shake off his opponent. Lu Qing was always fixed in front of him. Huff, huff, huff. Little Prince Cinda stopped, bent over slightly, and panted lightly. This kid's inherited superpower talent is pretty impressive. It's just that he's still young and can't unleash 10% or 20% of it. Once he reaches adulthood and goes through a short period of training, he'll probably be close to the inhuman stage. As for the further future, there's no way to be certain. Lu Qing suddenly understood the reason why the Samano royal family doted on this kid from top to bottom. He had spoiled her like a spoiled brat. Even though Zhang Xian was very polite and naive, he still disregarded the other party's wishes and forced himself to try it. She really wanted to give him a good beating so that he could experience what it meant to stir-fry meat with bamboo shoots. Would this cause a diplomatic storm? Lu Qing subconsciously looked at the cameras around him. For some reason, little Prince Cinda felt his heart clench and instinctively took 2 steps back. He wasn't willing to give up. With a push of his palm, all his pores opened and spewed out a scarlet mist. It was so evil and so cold, yet it carried a faint fragrance. It combined the effects of dizziness, corrosion, weakness, and coagulation. The ancient scroll of darkness, blood-boiling mist. This was the product of Cinda directly vaporizing a small amount of his own blood and mixing it with his darkness supernatural ability. The scarlet mist spread and quickly enveloped Lu Qing. Seeing this, a look of delight flashed across Cinda's eyes. At this moment, the mist seemed to thicken and solidify. In less than a few seconds, it formed pieces of translucent snowflakes of various shapes. They were dark red in color and drifted down slowly. It was a beautiful and dreamy sight. Sizzle. The scarlet snow covered the ground and let out a soft sizzling sound. It quickly melted into water, leaving behind clear marks. After the blood mist cleared, Lu Cheng's eyes reflected the figure of a boy in a black tuxedo with a red bow tie and combed back hair. He took a step forward. Inexplicably, Cinda panicked and took another 2 steps back. He blurted out in a croaky voice, What are you trying to do?" Lu Qing only wanted to scare the brat and didn't intend to use violence. Just as he was about to reply fiercely, he suddenly sensed someone entering the corridor. "Sister Irina!" Little Prince Cinda shouted in surprise, as though he had seen his savior. Lu Qing didn't turn his head, but the figure of the person appeared in the ice mirror. It was a lady in her late 20s wearing a gorgeous evening gown. She had the signature black hair and red eyes of the Samano royal family. She had long eyebrows and bright eyes. She was beautiful and elegant, and her figure was hot. She brought out the elegance and sexiness of the bareback dress. As she walked, it was as though she was a seductive darkness. She gave people a feeling of danger, but they couldn't help but want to approach her. The strong are extraordinary. Princess Irina, Xue Jian introduced through Lu Cheng's earpiece. Lu Qing nodded slightly and stepped aside, allowing little Prince Cinda to run past and stand beside the person. Little Prince just walked into the wrong washroom. He described what had happened with a straight face. "I didn't. I was just." As a gentleman, Cinda's face flushed red. "How could I enter the ladies' washroom?" Without waiting for Irina's reply, Lu Qing pretended to be on the walkie-talkie. He left the place and returned to the banquet hall. Princess Irina didn't speak. She just frowned and sized him up with a strange look. "Sister Irina, do you know him?" Cinda was raised to be a child, but that didn't mean he was stupid. He keenly sensed his cousin's abnormality. "You could say so." Irina retracted her gaze and answered faintly. She muttered to herself, the feeling of starry sky is so familiar. Ever since Lu Cheng was listed as the heavenly son of China, the intelligence agencies of various countries had been collecting information on him. He was a key target of observation. When he left the University Martial Arts Circle and joined the Longhu Club, similar information was presented to the higher-ups of various countries. They viewed him as the successor of the Dragon King. Irina, who had been in touch with the royal family for some time, naturally knew about it. "Is he very strong?" Little Prince Cinda asked excitedly. "Very strong." Irina nodded solemnly. Little Prince Cinda's eyes darted around. He asked curiously, Then is he stronger than you, Sister Irina? For now, I'm stronger. Irina boasted a little. She and Lu Cheng were at the same level. As for whether she could defeat him, she would only know after a real battle. Cinder immediately revealed a puzzled expression. But, he can see through my shadow transformation. Sister Irina, you can't. Irina's expression froze. She was momentarily speechless. Should I say that I lied to you just now, or have I always lied to you? Her thoughts raced and she was quick-witted. Irina smiled gracefully. Perhaps his ability is the nemesis of shadow transformation. I see. Little Prince Cinder easily believed his sister's explanation. My idiot little brother. The corners of Irina's mouth twitched, and she took the opportunity to smile. However, her heart was inexplicably filled with complicated feelings. If nothing goes wrong, Cinder will be my husband in the future, but in my heart, he will always be a child. Sigh, destined bloodline, destined marriage. Returning to Jia Lu's side, Lu Qing picked up his phone again and shared the incident with Yan Zhika about his encounter with the naughty kid. So slow. What did that little prince do? Jia Lu tilted her head and asked curiously. He was playing hide and seek. Lu Qing replied casually. Jia Lu almost couldn't believe her ears. In the end, she lamented, children who marry close relatives either have high IQ or are easily handicapped. That prince seems to be retarded. At night, in the hotel where the Samano royal family was staying, Lu Cheng and Jia Lu were in the surveillance room. One was resting with his eyes closed, while the other was paying close attention to the professionals. Once they noticed something amiss, they would take action immediately. In Irina's presidential suite, she was pacing back and forth in her lace pajamas. She looked very frustrated. This was the side effect of the mutated dark bloodline that provided her with great strength. Members of the Samano royal family would be filled with bloodlust from time to time. It wasn't the thirst for blood, but the urge to tear apart flesh and let the warm blood splatter on them. The younger and stronger they were, the stronger the urge. Bam bam bam. Irina threw punches with both hands, deforming the pillow. She didn't intend to go out hunting, even if it was just for real stray animals. Once discovered, it would severely affect the image of the royal family. After all, she was in a big country. After taking 2 deep breaths, Irina sat by the bed and removed the necklace around her neck. She pulled out the amulet that had fallen into her cleavage and held it in her palm. It was as though there was a starry sky in it. Countless feelings mixed together, but there was a calming feeling within. After 10 minutes, Irina exhaled, calmed down, and released her palm. The amulet was brand new, as though it had just come out of the oven. It was silver white and embedded with a few pure gems. In the middle of it was a complicated seal script from China. Confrontation. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.